Chapter 2355. Luli continued to cultivate the dragon manipulation skill. During this time, he had made significant progress. He felt he had found some clues and a feeling from the route map. As long as the feeling was right, he was confident that he could master the dragon manipulation skill. Unrivaled stayed for a while and then went to the front line. She was so nice to Luli because of enchantment. When she went down to visit Luli, it was also because enchantment had been talking about him. Enchantment was Emperor Z's daughter. Her status was high. She was of the same generation as Unrivaled's forefather. However, enchantment had been sealed in ice for 10,000 years. She had been around the same age as Unrivaled. Enchantment came to the En family with only one friend, Unrivaled. Unrivaled respected and liked enchantment. Enchantment was simple, kind, and aloof from worldly affairs. What enchantment cared about, Unrivaled would treat it as the most important. What enchantment cared about, Unrivaled would attach great importance to as well. Soon, another 4 months passed. There was only 1 month left before the 1-year deadline. Finally, Luli came out from cultivation. He was delighted. He had finally learned the basics of the dragon manipulation skill. There was hope for him to master it. After studying Emperor Z's body for nearly a year, he had finally figured out the problem that had troubled him for years. As long as he could overcome this bottleneck, there would be no other problems. Luli was confident that he could master the dragon manipulation skill in 1 or 2 years, or at most, 8 to 10 years. He was relieved. The dragon manipulation skill was a super skill created by Emperor Z. If he could not master it, then he would have missed out on a great opportunity. Many people might not have the chance in their entire lives. Luli came out after he made sure. Then, he went to see the crippled Zen master and took out Emperor Z's body. Plop! The crippled Zen master dropped to his knees and prostrated on the ground, sobbing. Looking at the headless body of Emperor Z, the crippled Zen master's eyes were filled with pain. Choking, he said, "Emperor, I am useless. I have not found your head yet. I am guilty." Luli stood there in silence. His mind was weighed down. Emperor Z's body had helped him a lot and saved him many times. The crippled Zen master said that Luli was half a student of the emperor. But Luli had already regarded Emperor Z as his teacher. "Emperor Z, don't worry," Luli murmured to himself. "If I can reach the emperor realm one day, I will help you kill Yang Di and avenge you. If I have the ability, I will take good care of your descendants." The violet Thearcha's body was found. The news didn't spread out. The crippled Zen master only gathered the family patriarch and some important patriarchs to pay their respects. It was the first time Luli met the family patriarch of the En family. They kowtowed to Emperor Z with respect. Then, En family patriarch and the others bowed to Luli. The head of the En clan said seriously, "Little friend Lu, you could be considered a benefactor of our En clan. If you have any need in the future, the En clan will not hesitate to help." Naturally, Luli could not claim credit for himself. Speaking of which, Emperor Z and the crippled Zen master had helped him more. He could not accept it in peace. Sixth Patriarch. En family patriarch exchanged some pleasantries with Luli and then said to the crippled Zen master, "Do you think we should have a grand funeral? Let the great emperor rest in peace." "There's no need, and I can't either." The crippled Zen master shook his head and said, "Bury him first. When she comes out from cultivation, she will pay her respects and then bury him in secret. Apart from you, nobody can be told. The tomb of the great emperor must be well hidden as well." "Yes." En family patriarch nodded with respect and left with the others. Luli was about to leave when the crippled Zen master asked, "Have you learned the dragon skill?" "Yes." Luli nodded and said, "If everything goes well, I should be able to master it in 3 to 5 years." "Good." The crippled Zen master's cheeks glowed. He said with delight, "Finally, the skill created by the great emperor has a successor. This is good news. Otherwise, the great emperor would not be able to die in peace. I want to cultivate at the En family for another 2 to 3 years." Luli thought about it and said to the crippled Zen master, "Also, I have 2 friends. I want them to stay at the En family. It is too dangerous to go to the flying fire continent with me. I hope you can take care of them. Okay, I understand. The crippled Zen master waved his hand. Luli was relieved. He left and went back to his room to cultivate. This time, he was cultivating his physical body and his soul at the same time. At the same time, he was cultivating divine energy, the dragon skill, the second half of the void leap, and the law of sound. Een family patriarch and several patriarchs with real power were overjoyed that Emperor Z's body was found. The fact that Emperor Z was killed and his body could not be buried had always been a sore point for the Een family. Generations of family patriarchs could not let it go even at the end of their lives. Finally, Emperor Z's body was back. Though his head was not found yet, it was good enough. The family patriarch gathered several patriarchs for a 3-day meeting to decide on the burial site. Then, they began to make arrangements to build a super mausoleum to bury Emperor Z. Naturally, this kind of mausoleum could not be built randomly. It must be hidden and luxurious. Also, safety must be emphasized. Otherwise, if grave robbers stole Emperor Z's body, the Een family would be disgraced. For the time being, the family patriarch didn't even care about the battle at the Tsong family. He focused on the mausoleum. When a mausoleum was built and the funeral was held, the family patriarch would be relieved. However, the funeral would probably take some time because they had to wait for Een Qingxi to come out of seclusion. The Purple Emperor was Een Qingxi's daughter, so they naturally had to pay their respects before burying her. Een Qingxi needed a long time to cultivate in seclusion. The crippled Zen master estimated that it would take 20 years. Een Qingxi's cultivation would take a long time. The mausoleum would take some time. The crippled Zen master estimated that it would take 20 years. He had already waited for 10,000 years, so a little more time wouldn't make a difference. It just so happened that the mausoleum needed some time to set up, and it would take a few years before it could be completed. The family patriarch had been waiting for 10,000 years. A little more time was not a big deal. It just so happened that the mausoleum would take some time to build. It could not be completed without several years. The divine glyphs alone would take several years. If grave robbers entered the mausoleum and desecrated Emperor Z's body, it would be the family patriarch's fault. Just the design of the divine glyphs would take several years. If grave robbers went in and desecrated Emperor Z's body, it would be the family patriarch's fault. That place was too dangerous. To build a mausoleum, there was not a small task. Many powerful warriors of the Een family would have to be mobilized. They would have to use countless materials and spend several years to build the mausoleum. It was too dangerous inside, and it was no small matter to build a mausoleum there. Many experts of the Een clan had to be mobilized, and they had to use countless divine materials and spend a few years to build it successfully. On the 3rd day of Lu Li's cultivation, the Een family suddenly made an announcement. Many young masters, young ladies, and patriarchs of the Een family were shocked. The Een family announced that Lu Li would be an honorary patriarch of the Een family. He would enjoy the treatment of a senior patriarch, but he did not have to do anything for the Een family. Chapter 23:56. Lu Li didn't know that the Een family had given him the title of an honorary patriarch. Even if he did, he wouldn't care. In the eyes of others, the elders of the Een family were even more important than the sky. Not to mention the elders, even the hall masters would be so excited that they would not be able to sleep. Even the forefather of the Een family, the most powerful warrior, Emperor Z, had been under Lu Li's control for many years. Why would Lu Li be excited about the position of patriarch of the Een family? Lu Li would not be excited about the treatment of a patriarch from the Een family. He had taken something from them and owed them a favor. He had to return the favor. It wasn't Lu Li's personality to eat and drink for free and still have a clear conscience. Lu Li's cultivation, on the other hand, was quite peaceful. Lu Li's understanding of the dragon manipulation skill was on the right track. Lu Li estimated that after a while, he would have achieved initial success in the dragon manipulation skill. At that time, he should be able to use the body dragon technique, which should increase his strength by at least 10 times. The Een family had given Lu Li top-level pellets and elixirs to cultivate his soul and divine energy quickly. Luli was also given some elixirs to strengthen his body. The elixirs were not given to Lu Li on a monthly basis like the ones at the palace of Luo Xian. Instead, the elixirs were given to Lu Li in one go for an entire year, and the elixirs were consumed by Lu Li's cultivation. His soul was growing at a rapid pace, and his corporeal body was also growing stronger. His divine power flowed like water. The divine medicine of a top-notch aristocratic family was naturally not something that a small faction could compare to. Not only was the Yin clan the head of a feudal lord, but it was also a clan that had produced a powerful emperor-level expert. The Yin family had a deep foundation. Now, they occupied 3 domains and controlled countless mystic realms, void fragments, and treasure lands. Every year, the Yin family could not use up all the elixirs produced in their territory. Many of the elixirs were sold in exchange for rare top-level elixirs. Luli was using the best ones. Luli had been studying the dragon slaying skill for 3 months. In order to avoid exhaustion, Luli took a day off to study the void teleportation skill. The crippled Zen master had only given him the first half of the divine art. Now that he was studying the second half, he immediately realized how profound this divine art was. This god technique was an ancient god technique that was obtained by the Violet Emperor and improved upon. There were some notes on it, which were probably left behind by the Violet Emperor. This ancient god technique was a mystic ability of a powerful ancient race. Ordinary humans were unable to cultivate it, but after being modified by the Violet Arch, they could cultivate it. With Emperor Zi's notes and explanations, it was much easier for Luli to study. In half a month, he had learned the basics of the second volume. He estimated that in half a year at most, he could master the skill. This divine art was an extremely powerful divine art for traveling and escaping. Previously, he only had the first half of the scroll. The space of the third heaven was too stable, so he couldn't use it. If he managed to comprehend it, he would be able to use it. He just didn't know how far it could travel through the void. In the past, flying through the void was considered a long distance in the divine realm. The problem was that the entire divine realm was about the size of a territory here. At that time, if he wanted to fly across the entire god world, who knew how many times he would have to fly across the void? If flying through the void could only reach that far in the third layer of heaven, then this divine art would be meaningless. Of course, the fact that Emperor Z went to improve it and the crippled Zen master gave Lu Li the second half of the scroll in such a serious manner indicated that there must be something special about this skill. Lu Li believed that it would not be a problem for him to fly across half a region. After 3 months of cultivation, Lu Li stopped to rest for a couple of days. Nobody disturbed him. Lu Li didn't socialize with the young masters and young ladies of the Yin family. Now that he was a patriarch of honor, his status was no longer equal to the young masters and young ladies. Naturally, nobody would bother him. During this time, Ganlin and Qinzhan were in closed-door cultivation as well. They would come out every now and then, but Lu Li was in closed-door cultivation. Qinzhan and Ganlin had a good time with the young masters and young ladies of the Yin family. Ganlin even planned to hook up with a young lady of the Yin family. The Yin family treated them well, of course, for Lu Li's sake. Also, the two of them didn't know how to conduct themselves. Lu Li went back to cultivation after several days of rest. This time, he didn't study the dragon reaching skill. Instead, he studied the void traversal skill. The skill was about to be mastered. Lu Li wanted to make the best use of his time to master it. 2.5 months later, Lu Li opened his eyes, filled with excitement. The void traversal skill was learned smoothly. Lu Li had already learned the first half of the skill. With Emperor Z's annotations, it was easier for him to learn the skill without any bottlenecks. Lu Li wanted to have a try, but in the end, he didn't because the Yin family and the Tsang family were fighting. Lu Li was afraid that he might make a mistake and end up at the Tsang family's side. Lu Li went back to cultivation after 2 days of rest. This time, he studied the dragon reaching skill. After cultivating for such a long time, his soul was strengthened, and so was his divine energy. His physical body was improving, but it was not as obvious. In order for his physical body to grow quickly, he had to have some peerless elixirs. The reason why the supreme divine physique was so difficult to cultivate, and the number of supreme divine physiques that reached great completion could be counted on one's fingers, was also because there were too few peerless divine herbs to refine the physique. Even superfamilies might not be able to buy the elixirs for body refinement, even if they had divine stones. During this time, it was not peaceful in the outside world. 3 more wars broke out between the two allied forces. Both sides lost over 10 million warriors, and another batch of Fourth Tribulation warriors died. Average warriors were fine. After all, elixirs could be cultivated in batches. However, it was hard to train Fourth Tribulation warriors. Top-level resources could only increase the chances, but not the success rate. 3 months later, Unrivaled came back. This time, she came to Luli directly. Luli was at a critical moment in his study of the dragon-reaching skill. He was annoyed to be woken up, but he remembered that not many people would come to disturb him. He opened the door and saw Unrivaled. His anger subsided a bit. He forced a smile and said, "Young Lady Ruland, you are back. Is the war over?" "No." Unrivaled shook her head. She cupped her fists and said, "This time, the situation has changed. Forefather 6 asked me to ask you to help us." "Help?" Luli was filled with doubt. What could he do to help the Een family when they were in trouble? But since the crippled Zen master had said so, Luli must do his best. He nodded and said, "What is it? Tell me." "It is a long story. Let's sit down and talk." Unrivaled walked out and sat down in the side hall outside. She called a maid to serve tea and said, "This matter has to start from the fight between us and the Tsang clan. We allied with the Tsang clan and many other clans to wage war against them. So many people died because we fought over an ancient palace hall." Ancient hall. Luli had heard that the Een family and the Tsang family were fighting over a treasured land. He didn't know that it was an ancient hall. He nodded and asked Unrivaled to go on. Unrivaled took a sip of tea and said, "It is said that this hall belongs to the daughter of an ancient saint emperor. This hall appeared at the border of a territory controlled by our family and a territory controlled by the Tsang family. To fight for this hall, we gathered many powerful warriors and started the war. But now," Unrivaled's eyes glowed, and she said, "a corner of the divine inscription of this hall has been blasted open. In 3 months, we can go in." "It is good that we can go in." Luli was surprised. He said, "Then all the powerful warriors can go in. What do I need to do?" "Powerful warriors are not allowed in, and they cannot go in." Chapter 23:57. Seven Tones Palace. That was the name of the ancient palace. The place where this palace was discovered was a dangerous place. It was the wintry pond between the Tsang family and the Een family's territories. This wintry pond contained wintry, true water. An average martial artist would be turned into an ice sculpture after staying there for a few incense sticks worth of time, unable to move. Moreover, the wintry pond was bottomless. Even warriors at the peak of the Fourth Tribulation didn't dare to go to the deepest part. There were also lords who went down to investigate, but didn't find anything. Until a few years ago, for some reason, a palace floated up. After this palace was discovered, people immediately wanted to go in and steal the treasures. However, they couldn't break the divine patterns inside. News spread quickly. The Tsang family and the Een family both sent people over, including the Een family leader. However, they couldn't break the divine patterns immediately. Even lords couldn't break it. Needless to say, this palace was very powerful. 3 words were engraved on the palace: Seven Tones Palace. Although it was written in ancient characters, it was easily found. Then, the 2 families looked through the information and found out the owner of this palace. Seven Tones Goddess. According to the ancient records, she was the daughter of a saint emperor. Although she wasn't very powerful and didn't have many records in the history books, she attracted the attention of the 2 families. Because this was the palace of the saint emperor's daughter, other super forces didn't intervene. If it was the saint emperor's palace, even the emperors of the chilly winter continent would fight for it. After fighting for a few years, people from both sides kept thinking of ways to break the divine patterns. Finally, a corner of the palace was blasted open. The experts from both sides wanted to rush in immediately. However, they were immediately repelled by the divine patterns. The entire palace shook violently. It seemed like it would explode at any time. The experts from both sides didn't dare to act recklessly. They immediately retreated. Then, they agreed to let the younger generation enter. Both sides also stopped fighting for the time being. After all, weren't they fighting for the treasures inside? As long as they could get the treasures, why fight and kill people? The younger generation entering could not only gain experience, but also allow the younger generation from both sides to compete for supremacy. Whether they were dragons or insects, they had to go through the baptism of cruel war to know. Only fighting could make them grow quickly. Both sides came back to gather the elites of the younger generation and agreed that each side could send 100 people in. 3 months later, they would enter together, and each side would rely on their own abilities to survive inside and fight for the treasures. When Unrivaled came back, she went to see Patriarch 6. The crippled Zen master asked Unrivaled to bring Lu Li with her, claiming that Lu Li could increase their chances of winning. In fact, Unrivaled was not convinced by the crippled Zen master's words. Lu Li had a Phantom King and several Wind Warcraft, and he once killed a warrior of the Fourth Tribulation. Even so, Unrivaled did not recognize Lu Li's abilities. Maybe when Lu Li was at the second heaven, he was too weak. Not many years had passed. Even though Lu Li could tame the Phantom King and the Wind Warcraft, Unrivaled believed it was good enough that he could be compared with a warrior at the initial stage of the Fourth Tribulation. So what if he was at the middle stage of the Fourth Tribulation? Unrivaled was in the middle stage of the Fourth Tribulation, but her overall combat power was comparable to the late stage of the Fourth Tribulation. Therefore, when the crippled Zen master said that, Unrivaled was not convinced. That being said, she dared not to disobey the crippled Zen master, so she came to invite Lu Li at once. And Lu Li nodded after hearing the whole story and said, "In 3 months, right? Then I will cultivate for another 2.5 months. Call me when it's time to go." Lu Li was on the verge of achieving initial success in the dragon manipulation skill, which could increase his abilities by 10 times. He must seize every second. Since the Hall of Seven Notes was the palace of the daughter of Saint King, it must be full of dangers. If he could achieve initial success in the dragon manipulation skill, he would have more chances to survive, and he could contribute more to the family. Okay. Unrivaled nodded and said, "Patriarch 6 said that if you can get any rare treasures in there, you can keep them if you get them alone. If you contribute, you will be compensated according to the proportion of your contribution." "That's easy. We are all on the same side." Lu Li smiled. The crippled Zen master had helped him so much, and he was indebted to him. Now, Lu Li was given many resources, and so was Qin Zhan and Gan Lin. It was not a big deal for Lu Li to do something for the family. Lu Li went back to closed-door cultivation, while Unrivaled went to see the family patriarch of the family. This was a very important matter. If they could get some treasures or ancient skills, then the family would soar, especially the ancient skills. If there were skills passed down by Saint King to his daughter, then they would be making a fortune. This time, it was not only the family, but also some super families of the Alliance. It was not just 2 families, but 2 alliances that were going to fight. Of course, they were going to fight not only because the family and the Tsang family were powerful, but also because they wanted a piece of the cake. There were only 100 people going in. Naturally, the distribution of people had to be careful. If there were problems with people, they might be killed or even wiped out. If they couldn't get any treasures, they would suffer a great loss. The families had a discussion, and it was decided that the family would send 50 people and the other families would send 50 together. All the families would choose the most powerful warrior of the young generation, and they would be rewarded with treasures, and they would try their best. After the discussion was over, the people of each family went back to make their own arrangements. This treasure hunt wasn't just a matter for the younger generation. More arrangements were needed. Otherwise, what if the younger generation were all killed in an instant? Everyone agreed that in 2.5 months, the young generation would gather at the Broken Sword Mountain and open the space gates. When the time was up, the 100 people would go to the Hall of Seven Tones. During this time, there was no war at the Hall of Seven Tones. Both sides sent powerful warriors to guard nearby to prevent the other side from secretly sending someone first. The entire Broken Sword Mountain was quite lively during these days. The young generation of the Een family were eager to have a try. Some young masters even asked their fathers to get a place to go. This was the biggest event for dozens of nearby territories. Naturally, the young generation didn't want to miss it. After more than a month, Qin Zhan and Gan Lin came out from closed-door cultivation. They were looking forward to the news, especially when they learned that Lu Li would go as well. But they knew their limits. Even if they did, they wouldn't be qualified to go, let alone that they hadn't reached the fourth tribulation. The minimum requirement to go to the Hall of Seven Tones was the fourth tribulation. Average warriors at the initial stage of the fourth tribulation would not be qualified. Qin Zhan and the others had seen more than hundreds of young warriors at the fourth tribulation of the Een family. 2 months later, the name list came out. As expected, many people were on it. Everyone knew how powerful the young generation of the nearby families were. But there was one name that shocked many people: Lu Li. The Een family didn't mind. They knew that Lu Li was mysterious, valued by Patriarch 6, and was appointed as an honorary patriarch of the Een family. Therefore, they could accept that Lu Li could go in. But the other families knew nothing about Lu Li, especially when his surname was Lu. There was no powerful warrior with the surname Lu in the Een family. What surprised more young masters and young ladies was that after half a month, all 99 young masters and young ladies had gathered and were ready to go. But Lu Li didn't show up. Unrivaled went to the palace where Lu Li lived and triggered the inhibition formation, but Lu Li didn't show up. When the information was sent, the family patriarch of the Een family made a decision to wait for Lu Li for 5 days. If Lu Li didn't come out from closed-door cultivation in 5 days, someone else would go in. Chapter 2358. Lu Li was not stalling on purpose. He was not that arrogant. He would not do this even if he were the host, not to mention that he was the guest. Lu Li was at a critical moment in his cultivation. He had shut off his senses for fear of being disturbed. Just like last time, if he was disturbed, all his efforts would be in vain. Therefore, Lu Li didn't care about anything else, not even if the sky was falling down. He focused on cultivation. He was about to achieve initial success in the dragon manipulation skill. The next few days were critical. 5 days passed by quickly, and Lu Li was still in cultivation. Een family patriarch could not wait any longer. All the young masters and young ladies were gathered at the plaza. They were upset to see that Lu Li was still nowhere to be seen. Even the young masters and young ladies of the Een family were unhappy. Unrivaled didn't say anything, but she was unhappy. Open the space portal. Een family patriarch waved his hand. Several patriarchs worked together to open the space portal. A huge golden gate appeared in the sky. Een family patriarch waved his hand and said, "Let's go in." Whoosh! Right at that moment, a man flew over from a manor in the north and arrived in front of everyone in an instant. Qin Zhan and Gan Lin were watching nearby. They were delighted to see the man. Qin Zhan said in a deep voice, "Lu Li is here." Swish, 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 many people looked over. They wanted to see what was so special about this man that they had been waiting for 5 days. He was at the peak of the second tribulation. He was not strong, and he didn't have the temperament of a noble young master. His looks were not as good as many young masters here. As far as many people were concerned, there was nothing special about him. Een family patriarch was not angry. After Lu Li saluted, he nodded and said, "Go on. Someone will tell you about the Hall of Seven Tones. Be careful when you are in there. Staying alive is more important. Nothing else matters." Lu Li cupped his fists and walked to Unrivaled. She was the only one he was familiar with. Standing next to her, Lu Li lowered his body and explained, "I am sorry. I am at a critical moment in cultivation, and I have only come out today." Unrivaled nodded. Many young masters nearby were jealous. Unrivaled was a goddess to many. Many had pursued her for years, but she never paid any attention to them. Luli was standing next to Unrivaled, and he was so close. Go! Young Master Fan, the most important young master of the Een family, was the first to fly into the Golden Gate. Unrivaled threw Luli a glance, and then flew up. 100 young masters and young mistresses rose into the air and rushed into the golden door under the gaze of tens of thousands of people. Cultivate well and wait for my return. Luli sent a message to Qin Zhan and Gan Lin and then rushed into the space gate. After the young masters and young ladies went in, a group of patriarchs went in as well. A white light flashed, and everyone appeared in a big city. There were already many warriors waiting here, and the elders of the Een family were there to receive them. There were still a few days before entering the city. This was a city at the border, and it was very close. It would only take half a day to teleport there. Naturally, no one was in a hurry to go over. They would wait until the appointed time. A group of people entered the castle. There was an elder sitting inside. Unrivaled and the others went over to greet him. Luli had never seen this patriarch before, but he still saluted politely. Is this Elder Lu? The old man stood up. He put on a smile and said, I am Een Shun, a patriarch of the clan of warfare of the Een family. I have been wanting to meet you for a long time. Unfortunately, the situation here has been tense. I am ashamed. Een Shun's words caused the eyes of the younger generation to almost pop out of their sockets. This was one of the supreme experts of the Een clan. The more than a dozen leaders nearby were all important figures that could make people tremble. How could he be so polite to Luli? Patriarch Lu? Luli was surprised. Unrivaled remembered that Luli had been in closed-door cultivation and she forgot to tell him last time. She explained at once. Luli, you have been appointed as an honorary patriarch of the family for life. This kind of patriarch doesn't have to shoulder any responsibilities or listen to the orders of the Een family. You don't have to do anything, and you can enjoy the privileges of the Een family. I forgot to tell you last time. Go and greet Great Uncle 11. Luli understood at once. He cupped his fist to Een Shun and said with respect, You are flattering me. I don't deserve this. How capable am I? I am the one who didn't take the initiative to come and greet you. Luli's humility pleased the patriarch of the clan of warfare. The other young masters and young ladies didn't like Luli at first glance. Instead, they thought Luli was a hypocrite and a flatterer. They all took their seats. Luli was sitting next to the patriarch of the clan of warfare, which made many more jealous. Young Master Fan, the most powerful young master of the Een family, acted as if nothing had happened. However, there was a glint of gloom in his eyes. After everyone was seated, Een Shun scolded, I think you have been told some things before you came. I won't say more. Nobody knows what is going on in the Hall of Seven Tones. But I can tell you, it is full of dangers. If you are careless, all of you can die in there. You are the elites of the younger generation of your families. If you die in there, it will affect all of our families. Maybe in thousands of years, our families will be gone. Everyone's expressions became solemn, but only they themselves could tell if Een Shun's words had sunk in. Een Shun paused for a moment before continuing. I want to make 3 points. If anyone violates these 3 points, the Een family and all of your families will be severely punished. You may even be expelled from your families. This is what we have discussed with your family heads. Everyone's expressions became more solemn this time. Een Shun said, First, no matter what happens in there, you cannot kill each other. If you violate this, the Een family will not tolerate you. Second, you cannot fight for the treasures you find. The treasures belong to whoever gets them. Anyone who tries to snatch the treasures will be punished severely. Third, you must be united. If you don't, you will all be killed by the Tsang family. If there are any internal disputes, you can come back and fight. It doesn't matter whether you live or die, but you must be united in there. Do you understand? Yes. Everyone stood up and bowed to accept the order. Those who could become the leaders of the younger generation of their families must have high IQ and EQ. They knew very well that they could die if they were not united. After all, there would be more than 100 young masters and young ladies from the Tsang family. They could all be wiped out if they were not careful. Okay, go and have some rest. Conserve your energy, and we will depart in a couple of days. In Fushun waved his hand and said, "Don't fool around these days. Take a good rest." They didn't fool around anymore. They were assigned their own rooms, and they either went to cultivate or to sleep. They wanted to rest for a couple of days and prepare for the fight in a couple of days. Luli went back to his room. He didn't cultivate anymore. He had achieved some initial success in the dragon skill, which gave him more confidence. He had been cultivating for a long time without any rest. He took a shower and fell asleep right away. He went into a deep sleep. He slept for 2 days. After he woke up, he cultivated for a while. The team began to assemble. Let's go. Chapter 2359. The temperature at the frigid pond was particularly low. There were only black stones and not a single plant. Because of the frigid pond, the temperature here was low. They were no longer concerned about the average temperature. However, the coldness here could penetrate through the body and into the soul directly. As soon as Lu Li and the others approached, they felt their hair stood on end. They were shivering from the coldness. Lu Li and the others checked with psychic power at once. Soon, they saw the Palace of Seven Tones. In the middle of the frigid pond, a palace floated, giving out a faint glow. Ancient, experienced. This was Lu Li's first impression of the Palace of Seven Tones. The palace was glistening, and there were no marks on the walls. Unlike the mottled marks on the walls of the ancient cities, this palace was ancient. That being said, anyone who laid eyes on this city would feel that it was ancient. The entire palace seemed to be emitting a sense of vicissitude. The castle was magnificent. The walls were glistening with some fancy patterns and exquisite reliefs of flowers, birds, fishes, insects, and beasts. The battleship stopped by the frigid pond. Everyone took a closer look at the Palace of Seven Tones. Luli closed his eyes. He used the marks of Tao to memorize the patterns on the walls of the Palace of Seven Tones, and then sent them to Blood Fairy. The patterns might not be useful, just for decoration. But what they could be useful? They could save lives. Over the years, Blood Fairy had never stopped studying divine glyphs. Luli could not even tell how good she was in this regard. Luli had high hopes for Blood Fairy when they went to the Palace of Seven Tones. Without the immortal's body as a host, Blood Fairy was living in Lu Li's body for the time being. Receiving the patterns from Lu Li, she said, "Master, these are divine patterns, very profound ones. Take a closer look. Do not miss anything." Blood Fairy's favorite thing was to learn powerful divine patterns. The more profound and powerful they were, the happier she would be because she could become more powerful in divine patterns. Luli had an idea. He checked the Palace of Seven Tones carefully and sent all the patterns and the arrangement of the flowers, birds, fishes, and insects to Blood Fairy. Whoosh! After a moment, Luli heard a noise from the distance. A battleship came over. Many people used psychic power to check. Young Master Fan and the others were filled with hatred and desire to fight. This time, they were not only here for treasures. If they could kill all the enemies, it would be a great victory. The 100 warriors were elites of the Tsang family and more than a dozen other families. To kill all of them would be a great loss to the Tsang family and the other families. Luli observed for a moment to make sure that he did not miss anything. Then he opened his eyes and looked at the 100 young warriors. The 100 people stood in very particular positions. The 5 people in the middle seemed to be surrounded by stars. There was 1 woman and 4 men. All of them were at the mid-stage 4th Tribulation realm. They should be the 5 strongest youths on the other side. On the surface, they were at the mid-stage of the 4th Tribulation. They probably had precious treasures on them. They might even have sacred artifact fragments. Their overall combat strength was very likely at the late stage of the 4th Tribulation. Luli also had 6 people with him, young Master Fan, Yin Ruolin, Yin Xingrui, and another young master of the Yin family. The other 2 should be young, powerful warriors of other families. The 4 of them were at the middle stage of the 4th Tribulation. Of course, there were more than 6 of them. There were more than 30 of them in total. Those warriors could reach the middle stage of the fourth tribulation at a young age. If they did not die prematurely, they would become powerful warriors of their families. Over the course of history, there were many geniuses in different families, but many of them died before they could grow up. After all, to become a powerful warrior, a warrior must go through countless battles. Every battle could cost lives. In order to become a supreme being expert, one had to step over the corpses of countless people. Those dead genius martial artists had been stepped on by supreme being experts. Let's go. In Fushun waved his hand. The 100 warriors flew up. 100 warriors flew out from the battleship in the distance as well, no more and no less. The two sides looked at each other, alert. At the same time, hatred rose in their eyes. Warriors from both sides flew to the left corner of the Palace of Seven Tones. A corner was blasted open, enough for 4 or 5 people to enter at the same time. But the two sides didn't rush in at the same time. They seemed to have a tacit understanding. Young Master Fan and Unrivaled were the first to go in, followed by 2 warriors from the other side. Then, Shungrui and another warrior went in, followed by 2 warriors from the other side. Soon, almost all of the 200 warriors had gone in. Luli was the last one. He didn't go for treasures this time. He just wanted to help the family and try his best to win this treasure hunt. When almost all of them had gone in, Lu Li and a young master next to him looked at each other and rushed in. There were only a few warriors left on the other side. They were confused to see Lu Li fly in. Was there no one left in the family? They had sent warriors at the peak of the second tribulation. Even if they had some strange skills and abilities, what could they do when there was such a huge gap between their realms? After Lu Li rushed in, a white glare flashed by. He felt he was teleported away. He didn't panic. He would be disappointed if the Palace of Seven Tones was only as big as it looked, with a radius of only a few hundred feet. When he landed, Lu Li took a look around and was taken aback. There was no one nearby, and he seemed to be in the air. He was standing on the ground. There seemed to be a mirror in the air. Lu Li saw a clear reflection under his feet, so clear that it was the same as himself. There was a thick mist around him. He could only see 2 miles away. Lu Li used psychic power and found that it was the same as his eyesight. Apart from a mist, there was nothing else. The only thing he could see was the reflection under his feet. Mirror of the Void, Lu Li exclaimed. He didn't panic. He had been to many dangerous places and had encountered many illusions. Needless to say, this was an illusion. Bang, bang, bang. Lu Li knocked on the mirror on the ground, which made a muffled sound. He took out his flying sword, but it pierced into the ground and bounced off. Blood Fairy, come out and do your work. Lu Li sat down with his legs crossed. He didn't run around. Everyone had their own specialties. It was better for Blood Fairy to solve the problem. His feet glowed as Blood Fairy pierced into the mirror on the ground. Lu Li sat down leisurely and began to cultivate. This illusion would not be dangerous, and he wouldn't run into anyone. Therefore, he didn't overthink, nor did he feel excited or thrilled. Desireless, resolute. He wasn't here to look for treasures, but to help. He believed that Blood Fairy would be able to break through the illusion easily. Master, 2 hours later, Blood Fairy sent him a message. Give me 10 days, and I will take you out of this illusion. Chapter 2360. Mirror of Void. If someone were to stand in the sky and look at the Mirror of Void, they would see that 200 people were standing on the Mirror of Void. Those people were not far away from each other, only hundreds of miles apart. That being said, none of them could see each other. Some of them were circling around, some were attacking, and some were flying around. But all of them were circling around in an area with a radius of hundreds of feet. Of course, some were sitting with their eyes closed. Some took out some formation stones and tools, trying to crack the formation. Time flowed by day after day, yet not a single person managed to break through the illusionscape. Many were extremely anxious, but there were even more who had calmed down and were thinking of ways to break through the illusionscape. Those that could come here were the elites of their families. They would not wander around like idiots. They would calm down and figure out a way. 10 days later, Lu Li opened his eyes on time. Blood Fairy rarely boasted. She said that she would not delay the 10 days. An hour after Lu Li opened his eyes, he heard Blood Fairy's voice. "Master, it is done. Come with me. I will lead the way and we can get out easily." "Okay, let's go." Lu Li nodded. He took out the green sword. This was a place where he could run into danger at any time. He had to be on guard. He had mastered the skill of dragon and could use it, but he would not do it for no reason. He sensed that there would be a period of weakness after he used the skill. Based on his previous experience, there would be a period of weakness after he used any elixir or skill that could enhance the body. That was because the energy itself was not something that he could normally possess. His body could withstand it for now, but in the long run, his body would not be able to bear the burden, and there would be repercussions. Blood Fairy was leading the way, while Lu Li followed her. He closed his eyes and used the trace of Great Path to sense the surroundings so that he could react in time once danger arose. "Master, there is someone up ahead," Blood Fairy suddenly said. Lu Li asked with a frown, "What kind of armor? White or blue?" This time, for the sake of distinction, both sides had the same armor. The Yin family had white armor. Lu Li was the only one who came late and did not get one, the white one. Blood Fairy said. Lu Li waved his hand and said, "Take me there." Led by Blood Fairy, Lu Li took a few turns and saw a man ahead. That person was fiddling with some array stones. When he heard the footsteps, he immediately acted as if he was facing a great enemy. He held a treasure sword in his hand, and under the infusion of divine power, the treasure sword shone brightly. "We're friends," Lu Li said in a deep voice. That man was surprised to see it was Lu Li. He said, "Patriarch Lu, how did you find me?" This person was a disciple of the Yin family and a direct descendant. However, compared to Yin Xingrui and the others, his status and combat ability were slightly lower. Lu Li smiled and said, "I could decipher runes and see through illusions. Come with me." "All right, Elder Lu, my name is Yin Tianfeng." The Yin family disciple, who called himself Yin Tianfeng, was overjoyed. He had been here for 10 days without any results. He thought he was going to be trapped here until he died. He followed Lu Li at once. He could not sense Blood Fairy because she was underground. Seeing Lu Li moving forward, he thought Lu Li could see through the illusion. "You do have some skills to be appointed as a Patriarch of Honor." Yin Tianfeng noticed that Lu Li did not need to check the surroundings. He just walked forward in strides, but he would circle around from time to time as if he really could decipher the runes. Yin Tianfeng was amazed. Family Patriarch did not ask Lu Li to come with them for no reason. This man must have some special abilities. "Master, there is another one on the left. She's also wearing white armor, and she is a girl. But she is good. I think she could decipher the runes and find a way out." Blood Fairy sent another message. Lu Li replied at once. "Lead the way." This time, there were 9 girls in total. The only one who could find a way out so quickly must be Unrivaled. Guided by Blood Fairy, Lu Li and Yin Tianfeng moved forward quickly. They circled around the girl twice and were closer to her. "Who is it?" A pleasant voice came. Lu Li was delighted to hear it. He grinned and said, "Young Lady Ruolin, it is me." Unrivaled was delighted. She rushed over. When she saw Lu Li and Yin Tianfeng, she said happily, "Lu Li, where did you find me?" Yin Tianfeng was sure that Lu Li could see through the illusion. Lu Li might have found him by accident, but to find Unrivaled so easily, Lu Li must be really capable. Before Lu Li could say anything, Yin Tianfeng said with a smile, "Patriarch Lu is impressive. He can see through the illusion. He found me as well." "What?" Unrivaled was taken aback. She looked at Lu Li in a strange way. At this moment, she seemed to understand why Patriarch 6 asked her to go to Lu Li. This man did have some strange skills. "Lu Li," Unrivaled thought for a moment and said, "Can you take us to find everyone? What if there are inscription masters among the enemies? The others will be in danger." "Okay." Though Lu Li had been appointed as a patriarch, Unrivaled addressed him casually. She treated Lu Li as a friend. After all, Lu Li and Yin Xingxi were friends. Luli asked Blood Fairy to lead the way to find warriors in white armors. Blood Fairy and the others circled around the area. Soon, they were found one by one. The area was filled with warriors in white armors. An hour later, they had found 8, including Lu Li, Yin Qingxi, and Yin Qingxi. There were 11 in total. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Blood Fairy found a warrior in blue armor. He was from the Tsang family. Blue armor. Lu Li raised his eyebrows. He asked Unrivaled, "There's a warrior from the Tsang family over there. Should we do it?" This time, Lu Li was here to help. If he wanted to help the Yin family to win, then he must kill the Tsang family warriors. He would not show any mercy. Since they were enemies, there was no need to show mercy. The Tsang family warriors would show no mercy when they saw Lu Li. Charge! Unrivaled was a seasoned warrior. Over the years, the hatred between her and the Tsang family had grown deeper. Now that she had a chance to kill someone, she would not show any mercy. Lu Li led the team over at once. Everyone unsheathed their weapons, ready to kill. When Lu Li and the others got closer, they all dashed over after they saw that warrior. Lu Li did not do anything. There were 11 of them, and he did not need to do anything. That warrior was only at the initial stage of the 4th tribulation. Unrivaled did not even bother to do anything. She and several others killed the warrior easily. "Let's go." Unrivaled had someone put away the body. Lu Li and the others moved on. Along the way, they continued to look for warriors of the Yin family and the Tsang family. "Master, there's a team over there, over 30 of them. All of them are in blue armors." 6 hours later, Lu Li had gathered 27 warriors, and he had killed 5 from the Tsang family. Right at that moment, Blood Fairy suddenly sent a message. "Over 30? Lu Li was worried. The Tsang family must have some masters that could decipher runes. He told Unrivaled about the situation. She said at once, "Let's go." The Tsang family had more people, and there were runes masters. It was not a good time to start conflict. On the off chance that all the powerful warriors were here, the Tsang family would suffer. Over 30. Chapter 2361. Led by Blood Fairy, they took a detour. This time, Lu Li was faster. He tried his best to find his own people and kill the enemies so that he could preserve his own strength. The war had begun. If the enemies killed too many of their own, then Lu Li's side would be doomed. Therefore, both sides had to make every second count. They had to gather their own people and kill the enemies. If they could kill a large number of the enemies, it would be easier for them to fight for the artifacts. They could defeat the enemies completely and even wipe them out. Lu Li and the others moved quickly. In an hour, they ran into 5 of their own and killed one of them. However, Blood Fairy noticed some bloodstains but no corpses. She did not pay attention until Lu Li told her to do so. Many must have been killed. Lu Li's mind was weighed down. If Yin Tianfan and Yin Xinrui were killed as well, then it would be troublesome. Even though Lu Li's abilities had been improved, he did not think he could defeat the powerful warriors of the Tsang family. Some of them must have treasures. Time moved on. Lu Li rarely saw warriors of the Tsang family. He wondered if the Tsang family had 2 powerful warriors of divine inscriptions. Rustle, rustle, rustle. 4 hours later, the number of people on Lu Li's side had reached 42. At that moment, Lu Li heard some light footsteps in the distance. He used the trace of the great path, and his senses were sharp enough to sense it. At the same time, Blood Fairy said, "Master, there are more than 20 people coming. They are from your side." "Ah." Lu Li was overjoyed. He hurried to gather with the others. Unrivaled and the others sensed something was off. They were on guard. Lu Li smiled. "They're on our side. Is there someone in the Yin family who is good at divine inscriptions?" "There is one." Unrivaled's eyes glowed. "I think the Lu family has a young master who is good at divine inscriptions." "Who is it?" They heard a muffled shout. Unrivaled and the others were delighted to hear it. "Brother Fan, it is us," Unrivaled said. Whoosh! More than 20 people rushed over. The leader was a handsome young master. It was Yin Tianfan. He was delighted to see Unrivaled and the others. "Ha ha ha! Little Six, I knew you would not die. Greetings, Brother Fan. Greetings, Brother Rue." It's great to be able to meet you. Sister Lon, you're so awesome. You can actually decipher the divine inscriptions. The group of people gathered together. Although they had only been separated for about 10 days, many of them felt as if they had been reunited after a calamity. They were all inexplicably happy and excited. 68. Luli did some calculations. There were 68 people in the two teams in total. They had killed more than 10 warriors of the Tsang family along the way. If Tianfan and the rest didn't kill the Tsang clan's people, and the rest of the people on their side were killed by the Tsang clan, they would suffer a loss. We killed 17 of them. Tianfan and Unrivaled exchanged information. As expected, it was because of the young master of the Liu clan that they were able to escape so quickly. Since that person could decipher the divine inscriptions, it meant that he could easily break through the illusionary realm here. Thank you, Elder Liu. When Tianfan learned that it was Liu Li's doing, he came over to thank Liu Li. If it were not for Liu Li, Unrivaled and the others would have died. Most of the more than 60 warriors at the middle stage of the Fourth Tribulation Realm were here, which boosted their confidence. Liu Li and the others did not stop. They continued to move forward. For one thing, they were looking for their lost teammates, and for another, they were looking for those who were alone to kill. This time, it was the young master of the Liu family who led the way. He was skilled in divine inscriptions. He led the team forward quickly, only a bit slower than Blood Fairy. Since someone had taken action, Luli asked Blood Fairy to come back. He liked to keep a low profile. In such a dangerous place, he could survive longer by keeping a low profile. Along the way, they found more bloodstains and some bodies that had been minced. Liu Li and the others would collect the bodies when they killed someone. However, they would not mince the bodies. Therefore, it must be someone on their side that had been killed. For hours later, Liu Li felt the ground up ahead was shaking. He was alarmed and said, "There are people up ahead, quite a lot." Tianfan stopped. He nodded and said, "Yes, quite a lot. At least 60 or 70. The rest of the people were instantly on guard. With so many people, they could only be from the Tsang family. A young master said with killing intent, "Should we just kill them? Don't be impulsive." Tianfan shook his head. "We cannot fight to the death without absolute confidence. We are here to hunt for treasures, not to risk our lives. If we must, we can go back and fight." Unrivaled nodded. That was what the seniors in the family had told them. Do not fight to the death without absolute confidence. It would be meaningless to kill 3,000 enemies at the cost of 800 of your own. Fall back. Tianfan waved his hand. They stepped back. The Tsang family seemed to have noticed that there were many people here as well. They did not chase after them either. Both sides had reached a tacit understanding. Without absolute confidence, or if they were not fighting for treasures, they would not risk their lives. Otherwise, what was the point of coming here when they had already lost everything? They kept on searching and circled around in the mirror of the void. Half a day later, they found another person and killed a Tsang family warrior. Everyone's heart was weighed down. It had been a long time, and they could not find anyone else. They must all be dead. 31 of them had died, just as they came in. How many of them could make it out alive? Another half a day later, the two teams encountered each other again. Both teams left after they sensed each other's presence. There was no need to risk their lives. Finding the survivors was the priority. Another day passed, and the two teams encountered each other again. But they did not find a single survivor. Tianfan made up his mind. "Liu Hai, find a way out. Don't wander around here. Leave as soon as possible." They had been searching for a long time without finding any survivors. The others might all be dead. There was no point in wasting time here. If the Tsang family's people left first, they would be able to seize the initiative. "Let's go." The others did not think too much. Before they came in, many were prepared to die. Those who died could only blame their bad luck. Liu Hai led the team to circle around. Liu Li asked Blood Fairy to send him a message. Blood Fairy sent him a map with many boxes. There must be at least 10,000 of them. On those boxes, there was a winding path. It seemed that following this path could lead them out of the mirror of void. Liu Li observed Liu Hai carefully. He noticed that Liu Hai was following the same path. Luli was relieved and did not bother to worry about it. 6 hours later, they saw a bridge up ahead. It was only half of the bridge. The other half was shrouded in mist and could not be seen. The exit. They were excited. After Lu Hai made sure that there was no danger, Yin Tian Fan took the lead and stepped onto the broken bridge. When Yin Tian Fan stepped in the mist, a white glare flashed and Yin Tian Fan disappeared. He must have been teleported away. Let's go. Chapter 2362. After a flash of white light, Luli found himself in a brightly lit hall. The hall was empty. Apart from simple furniture, there was nothing else. But there were some stone pillars with patterns, flowers, birds, fishes, and insects. The group wandered around in the hall, looking for treasures. There might be treasures in the hall. Luli did not go looking for them. He just recorded the patterns and sent them to Blood Fairy. Those were divine patterns. Blood Fairy could study them, which would make it easier for her to decipher them. The group wandered around the hall, but found nothing. There was no treasure in the hall, but there were many exits. 4 exits led to 4 corridors. The 4 corridors were deep. Luli could not tell where they were going. Naturally, the group could not split up. They randomly picked a corridor and walked forward. Luli walked at the back, keeping a low profile. He said nothing and observed the surroundings calmly. The corridor was long. They had been walking for the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, but they still had not reached the end. All of a sudden, the group stopped. Luli used psychic power to check. Lu Hai, who was at the front, was staring at the ground with a frown. Divine patterns. Luli's expression grew solemn. The runes here were not average ones. The ones outside were hard to crack, even for Lord Realm warriors. If the divine patterns here were the same as the ones outside, then it would be more difficult for them to crack them. Patriarch Lu, please come take a look. Yin Tian Fan knew that Lu Hai was in trouble since he did not say anything. He asked Luli to take action. They made way for him. Luli walked over. He saw many divine inscriptions blocking the way forward. There were too many divine patterns here. The space in front of them was filled with them. They could fly over, but who dared to do so? With so many divine patterns, they could be blasted to death. Luli pretended to observe while Blood Fairy sneaked into the ground to check. The moment Blood Fairy took action, Lu Hai raised his eyebrows and looked at Luli. Lu Hai had found Blood Fairy. Luli nodded in an enigmatic manner. Lu Hai did not pay much attention. He thought this was one of Luli's tricks to detect divine patterns. Blood Fairy had been checking for a long time. Luli pretended to watch. Since Luli and Lu Hai said nothing, the others did not dare to move. Yin Tian Fan sent 2 warriors to other corridors to investigate. After the time for 2 incense sticks to burn, Luli and Lu Hai did not move. The 2 people sent out had returned. The 2 of them went to the other 3 passageways to investigate for a while, and discovered that all the other passageways had divine patterns, which were exactly the same as this one. Just you wait. Yin Tian Fan waved his hand. If Luli and Lu Hai could not decipher the runes, then they would have to die in the hall. Some of them were on guard, while the others sat cross-legged and rested. After more than 2 hours, Blood Fairy finally replied, "Master, the divine inscriptions here are very profound. I can decipher them, but I need time. At least 3 to 5 days." "Good." Luli nodded. He turned to Lu Hai and asked, "Young Master Lu, did you find anything? I can see some." Lu Hai sighed, frowning. "But the divine inscriptions here are too profound, and they are ancient ones. It is difficult to decipher them. Even if we can, it will take months." Months? Yin Tian Fan and the others were relieved to hear this. For them, a few months was a short time. They would be happy as long as they could decipher the runes. Lu Hai came to his senses and asked, "Patriarch Lu, do you have a plan? I'm still looking. The divine inscriptions here are complicated." Luli answered ambiguously. Lu Hai said nothing else and went back to studying the divine inscriptions. Luli was bored. He sat on the ground, looking at the divine inscriptions, thinking. Lu Hai took out some strange things and continued to study the divine inscriptions. The others watched for a while and then stopped, waiting for Lu Hai to decipher the divine inscriptions. Rustle, rustle, rustle. A day later, a young master came from the distance. He came to Yin Tian Fan and said, Song Long and the others are here, but they have gone to another passageway. A glint of coldness rose in Yin Tianfan's eyes. He suppressed his killing intent and said after some thoughts, Keep a close eye on that passageway. Send a signal at once if anything happens. The Tsang family had gone to another passageway. Clearly, they didn't want to fight. Yin Tian Fan didn't want to fight to the death either. They had gained nothing since they came in. It would be a waste to fight now. 4 or 5 people went out to monitor the passageway. Song Long's passageway was monitored as well. Both sides restrained themselves, and no conflict arose. Soon, 3 or 4 days passed by in peace. The Tsang family might be working on the formations as well, so they didn't come to disturb them. Lu Hai had been thinking with a frown. He took out a sand table with many circles drawn on it. He must be trying to find a way to crack the divine inscriptions. Lu Li had been cultivating with his eyes closed. Since he was looking at the divine inscriptions, others thought he was using psychic power to find a way to crack the formations. As for Blood Fairy, Lu Hai was not the only one who sensed it. Yin Tian Fan and the others felt it as well. But a soul was moving in and out of the divine inscriptions. They all thought Lu Li was trying to find the divine inscriptions. Buzzing. On the 5th day, the divine inscriptions suddenly glowed, which startled everyone. Lu Li opened his eyes as well. Surges of divine energy glowed in his hands as he poured them out. It seemed that he was trying to crack the formation. Lu Hai was surprised. Lu Li's method of cracking the formation seemed to be quite mysterious. To put it more precisely, it didn't look like he was cracking the formations, but messing around. Buzzing, as Lu Li was messing around, the divine inscriptions were glowing brighter and brighter. Lu Hai stood up and stepped back. He said with concern, Patriarch Lu, don't do anything rash. If the divine inscriptions backfire, it will be disastrous. The others were frightened by the horrifying energy coming from the divine inscriptions. Unrivaled said, Lu Li, don't be hasty. Lu Hai can crack the divine inscriptions. It will be okay to wait for a few more months. Lu Li said nothing. He kept on pouring out divine energy. As a matter of fact, he was just pretending. It was Blood Fairy who was actually cracking the formations. None of Lu Li's divine energy hit the divine inscriptions. He was just putting on a show to make others think that he was the one cracking the formations. After the time for one incense stick to burn, the divine inscriptions glowed brightly. A more horrifying energy spread out. The killing intent spread out. Everyone stepped back as if they were facing a formidable enemy. Unrivaled was worried. If Lu Li were to die in there, how could she explain to Yinqingxi? Buzzing, the divine inscriptions glowed for a while and then dimmed down as if a fire was put out. Lu Li stopped pouring out divine energy. He turned around and grinned. Let's go. The inscriptions here are cracked. Chapter 2363. Lu Hai's family was well known. His family had been studying divine inscriptions for generations. They had a deep understanding of divine inscriptions and could forge powerful relics. Lu Hai was not a strong warrior. He was only at the initial stage of the 4th tribulation. But he was sent here because he had a deep understanding of divine inscriptions. Lu Hai had said that he would need several months, and he might not be able to solve it. How could they believe that Lu Li had solved it in a matter of days? Lu Li just poured out divine energy at random. Many people here had a certain understanding of divine inscriptions. Lu Li looked like he was fooling around. Lu Li smiled, seeing that others could not believe it. He dashed forward and covered a distance of thousands of feet in an instant. Standing on the divine inscription, he said with a smile, It's okay. We're safe now. Are you coming or not? Everyone came to their senses. They looked at Lu Li in a different light. No matter how strong Lu Li was, at the very least, when it came to divine inscriptions, he was much stronger than Lu Hai. Lu Hai bowed from the distance and said, Patriarch Lu, you are amazing. I admire you. Unrivaled smiled. Her charming expression brightened the eyes of the people in the vicinity. As the goddess of the Een family, this young lady was proud. Young masters would hardly talk to her, let alone smile at her. Patriarch Lu, you are amazing. Een Tian Fan clasped his fists and said, Go and get Feng Yu and the others. Let's go. One of the young masters rushed out and gathered all the warriors in the corridor. They followed Lu Li and moved forward. This time, in a mile or two, they saw a golden gate with the words Hall of Transcendence written on it. Hall. Many people's eyes lit up. Had they arrived at the main hall? There must be treasures in the main hall. How could there be no treasures in the palace of the daughter of Saint Emperor? Blood Fairy was in the front to check. There were no divine inscriptions on the gate. Luli did not want to compete with them for treasures, so he stood still. Een Tian Fan waved his hand. Two young masters rushed over and pushed the gate open. A ray of golden light shone as if the gate of a treasury was opened. The glare was so dazzling that people could not open their eyes. There are treasures. One of them cried out in surprise because they saw something flickering with golden light floating inside. Their eyes immediately lit up, and they actually rushed inside without a care for anything else. Something's wrong, stop. Two shouts came from Lu Li and Lu Hai, but it seemed that it was too late. The four of them charged in, and four wretched cries rang out. Next, before everyone's eyes, the four of them burst into flames. They twisted in midair for a moment before being incinerated into ashes. Hiss, hiss, the group of people sucked in a breath of cold air. Although the four people who rushed in were at the early stage of the fourth tribulation, they were instantly killed. Not even dregs were left. Wasn't this too terrifying? The expressions of Een Tian Fan and the others turned ugly. They probed inside with their divine will, but it was like a deep sea. They couldn't see the bottom, and they couldn't see what was inside. Een Tian Fan turned to Lu Li and Lu Hai. Lu Li and Lu Hai frowned and began to observe. That being said, Lu Li was just enjoying the show. It was Blood Fairy who had found out more. A group of people gathered outside and watched from afar. Everyone's expressions were ugly. If they could not enter the door, then they would still be trapped here. Master, there are powerful runes in here. We cannot crack them. After a moment, Blood Fairy said. Luli's mind had just begun to sink when Blood Fairy added, But you don't have to crack the runes. There is a path of life in the runes. Find the pattern, and you can go in easily. What do you mean? Luli was confused. Blood Fairy explained, the inhibition formations in this door operate indirectly, like a wheel that is constantly spinning. Half of them are doors of death, and the other half are doors of life. As long as you can find the door of life, you will be fine. Okay, I will leave it to you. You must get to the bottom of it. Luli nodded to himself and said, This is not a joke. If something goes wrong, we will all die. Blood Fairy would not act rashly. She went on. Luli sat on the ground and began to cultivate. After all, there was nothing for him to do. Lu Hai began to observe carefully. He took out some threads and floated them in. After half a day, Lu Hai said solemnly, There is a path of life in this door. There is a chance of survival, but it is difficult to find the path of life. Patriarch Lu, have you found anything? Luli was still cultivating. He heard Lu Hai's words, but did not answer. It would be pointless to answer now. He did not count on Lu Hai. He would wait for Blood Fairy to solve the problem. Lu Hai and the others thought Luli was deep in thought, so they didn't disturb him. Lu Hai rested for a moment and went on. The others waited patiently. 2 days later, Blood Fairy finally sent a message back. She was completely confident that she would be able to get them into the cave. Luli opened his eyes after Lu Li heard the explanation. How is it, Luli? Unrivaled walked over and asked. Lu Hai stopped and looked at Lu Li with excitement. The others were excited as well. Lu Li thought about it and said, I have found the path of life. But if I go in first, it will be hard for you to go in. I am afraid that you will not be able to seize the opportunity. This path of life will not appear on time. It will appear randomly and only for the time for one breath. Any earlier or later, and you may be killed. Lu Li's intention was clear. They would go in first, and he would be the last. That being said, it would be inappropriate for him to say this out loud. As expected, As soon as Lu Li said this, they all said nothing. The four who went in first had died without a trace. If Lu Li was wrong, then the first one to go in might turn into dust. Seeing that no one said anything, Lu Li said, Lu Hai, how about I tell you the rules? I will go in first, and you will guide the others. Lu Li had complete trust in Blood Fairy. She would not mess around with something like this. If he could go in first, he could get the treasures first. Why not? No. Unrivaled shook her head. She walked over to Lu Li and asked, Lu Li, how confident are you? 90%. Lu Li answered. Unrivaled made up her mind. She made up her mind and said, I will go in first. I will leave my jade talisman of life. If my jade talisman of life is not broken, you can come in with me. No. Tian Fan was losing patience. He turned to the disciples of the Yin family and said coldly, Anyone who is not afraid of death, come out. Me. A disciple of the Yin family stepped out. He bowed to Unrivaled and said, Goddess, who do you think you are? How can you take such a risk? I will go in first. For the sake of the family, for the goddess, I will die for Tianjun. Lu Li touched his nose, speechless. Tianjun was speaking as if he was going to die. Tianjun must be Unrivaled's suitor. He must be trying to win Unrivaled's heart by speaking in such a righteous manner. Tianjun, be careful. Unrivaled nodded. She did not seem to be touched. She added, Don't worry and go in. We will take care of the rest. Ha, ha, ha. I have nothing to regret now that you have said so. Tianjun laughed out loud. His laughter was filled with desolation. Then, he turned around like a warrior and turned into a sharp arrow that shot towards the golden door. Boom. Chapter 2364. Tianjun was taken aback. He flew into a rage upon hearing Lu Li's words. It was fine that Lu Li beat him up, but how could Lu Li call him an idiot? Many young masters of the Yin family despised Lu Li from the bottom of their hearts. They didn't think a second Tribulation Realm warrior was qualified to be valued by the family. Tianjun was enraged when he was appointed as a patriarch. Tianjun, seeing that Tianjun was about to lose his temper, Unrivaled said at once, If it were not for Lu Li, you would be dead now. Tian Fan walked over, patted Tianjun's shoulder, and said, Tianjun, calm down. Lu Li did not mind Tianjun. If Lu Li had not stopped the idiot, he would have died. Lu Li observed the inside of the Golden Gate and said, Get ready. Tianjun tried to suppress his anger. Lu Li said without looking back, Later, when I tell you to go, just do it. If you are one step too late or one step too early, I promise you that you will meet your maker. Tianjun, leave your jade talisman of life. Tian Fan said. Tianjun stayed and stared at the Golden Gate. Lu Li did the same, but he was waiting for Blood Fairy's message. Okay. A moment later, Blood Fairy said. Lu Li shouted at once, Go. Whoosh. Tianjun turned into a beam of light, gritting his teeth and charging in with a determined look on his face. At that moment, everyone stopped breathing, their hearts in their throats. Good. Tian Fan cheered. Tianjun was not burned into ashes after he went in. Neither was his jade talisman of life. After the time for 2 breaths, everyone was delighted. Patriarch Lu. Tian Fan asked at once, Can we go in now? Wait. Later, 5 will go in at once. Not too many. Get ready. Lu Li waved his hand. Tian Fan and the other 4 got ready at once. But they did not send the 5 most powerful ones in at once, but in batches. Even if something went wrong, they would not be completely annihilated. Go in. A moment later, Lu Li waved his hand. The 5 who were ready dashed in. They were not burned by the flames, and their jade talismans of life were intact. Master Lu. Lu Hai bowed to Lu Li again. I am convinced. You are as good as the patriarchs of my family when it comes to divine inscriptions. The others were stunned. The Lu family was famous for its sacred inscriptions, and the patriarchs of the Lu family were highly accomplished in this field. They didn't expect that Lu Hai would give Lu Li such a high evaluation. Lu Li waved his hand. He didn't show too much pride, but he was quite happy inside. After all, Blood Fairy was his charming spirit. Her attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were high, just like him. Come! Luli would shout every time for one incense stick to burn. The 5 of them would rush in at once. Nothing went wrong every time. After 2 hours, there were only Luli and the other 3 people left. Now, finally, Blood Fairy said, "Master, there are 2 powerful divine inscriptions here. They are connected to the main divine inscriptions in the Hall of 7 Tones. There is no way to crack them. Even if I do, I will be attacked by the main divine inscriptions. I think everyone here will be killed." "What?" Luli put on a solemn expression and asked, "Is there no other way? Are we going to be trapped here?" "Force your way in," Blood Fairy answered after some thought. "If I am right, as long as you force your way in and take the treasures, the power of the divine inscriptions here will be weakened." "Force our way in," Luli touched his nose. Tian Fan and Unrivaled had both tried and failed. Would the others be able to do it? If no one could break through, would they be trapped here forever? Until someone's strength increases to the point where they can pass through? How many years would that take? 100 years or 1,000 years? I will go. Chapter 2365. Of course, Luli dared not to try the formation of fire and frost at will. He pondered for a moment and released a wind demon beast from the heavenly separation pearl. As soon as the wind warcraft came out, its powerful might woke up some warriors who were cultivating and resting. They looked at Luli in confusion, not knowing what he was up to. Luli controlled the wind warcraft to walk slowly toward the area of ice. When the wind warcraft stepped on the rune on the left, the rune on the ground glowed. A surge of cold air came out and froze the wind warcraft in an instant. "Xiao!" Luli pulled the wind warcraft back. He gasped at the sight of the wind warcraft that was almost frozen into an ice sculpture. He put away the wind demon beast and released the Spectre King. If a wind demonic beast died, there would be one less wind demonic beast, and its recovery speed would be slow. However, the Spectre King was different. As long as it didn't die, it could immediately be healed by the Netherworld spring water. This beast, the Phantom King's energy was so strong that they had never seen it before. Once again, they were impressed by Luli. Luli didn't pay attention to them. He let the Spectre dynasty fly towards the area of flames, but at a slow speed. After arriving in the air above the fiery region, the divine runes down below lit up, following which bursts of dark blue flames appeared and engulfed Phantom King. "Roar, roar!" The Phantom King cried out in pain. It was on fire, and its scales were smoking. Luli hurried to fly the Phantom King back and put it back into the separation bead. After a while, Luli released the Phantom King again. What shocked everyone was that the Phantom King didn't have any injuries. It was as if Luli had released another Phantom King. This time, even Tian Fan was looking at Luli in a different light. Luli's realm was low, but he had powerful beasts. Spectre Kings could be comparable to warriors at the middle stage of the Fourth Tribulation. If Luli could have a large group of Spectre Kings, then his abilities would be horrifying. "Go!" Luli waved his hand to the left. The Phantom King flew over slowly. However, as soon as it arrived above the sacred glyph, a gust of cold air came from below. The Phantom King turned into an ice sculpture and fell down. "Xiao!" Luli rushed over, pulled the Phantom King's tail back, and put it into the separation bead. His expression became extremely ugly. Through his experiments, he had a rough understanding of the strength of the cold air and flames here. It was no wonder that Tian Fan and Ruoku couldn't withstand it. "Luli!" Rulan walked over with an inquiring look in her eyes. Luli explained, "There is no way to decipher the runes here. I think if we want to decipher the runes, we have to force our way to the 3 treasures. Only by obtaining the treasure will we be able to decipher the divine inscriptions and leave this place." Lu Hai thought about Lu Li's words. He thought about it and said, "There is nothing I can do. The runes here are too strong for me to solve. Even patriarchs of my family may not be able to do it unless our forefather comes in person. This, you can't get out? Are we going to be trapped here until we die? This damned place. If we were to be trapped here for 1,000 or 10,000 years, what are we to do? Elder Lu, please think of a way. We don't want to be trapped here. There must be a way. There must be a way. Everyone, don't worry, people began to discuss. Those that could come here were all outstanding talents of the younger generation. Many of them were young masters and young ladies who lived like princes. They didn't want to be trapped here forever. Even if they were trapped here for tens of thousands of years, many of them would lose their minds. All right, that's enough. Yin Tianfan coldly snorted. The sounds of discussion in the surroundings instantly died down. Yin Tianfan stared at the three treasures in the distance as he asked, Elder Lu, are you sure that if we obtain those three treasures, we will be able to decipher the divine inscriptions? 70%. Lu Li didn't give a definite answer. Yin Tianfan nodded. He made up his mind and said, let me try. Brother Fan, calm down. Brother Fan, don't be impulsive. Let's work together. We will find a way out. Sister Lan, talk some sense into Brother Fan. Others tried to persuade him. Yin Tianfan was the leader of the younger generation with high prestige. He was admired by many young masters and young ladies. Some young ladies even had a crush on him. Stop it. If I die, you will listen to Ruolin and Patriarch Lu. Yin Tianfan waved his hand. He walked to the right slowly, choosing to go through the sea of fire. Once the left side was frozen, it would be hard to come back. Buzzing, he took out a piece of yellow bronze. As soon as it appeared, it emitted a strong and ancient energy. One look and Lu Li could tell that it was a piece of treasure. A fragment of holy weapon and a complete one at that. Lu Li nodded to himself. The fragment of holy weapon could release energy and it might be able to stop the fire. Yin Tianfan walked over slowly. He activated the bronze at the edge of the rune. Buzzing, the bronze glowed. Streaks of yellow light came out from the bronze and enveloped Yin Tianfan. Yin Tianfan stood in the glow. It was as if there was a Buddhist halo behind him. He was like an invincible god. Hoi! Yin Tianfan shouted and stepped toward the rune. The rune under his feet glowed. Streaks of blue flames came out and enveloped Yin Tianfan. The glow of the bronze dimmed down, but it still covered Yin Tianfan and protected him from the flames. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. Even Yin Ruolin's palms were sweating. Yin Tianfan moved. He took another step forward and triggered many more dark blue flames. However, the bronze multicolored light was still able to withstand it. Yin Tianfan was surrounded by flames, and his skin was red. That being said, he seemed to be able to stand it. Bang, 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 Yin Tianfan walked forward step by step. His footsteps were very steady. When everyone saw that the multicolored light was able to resist, they all revealed looks of ecstasy. If the fragment of holy weapon could stand the flames, then Yin Tianfan would have a chance to get the three treasures. Tell him to come back. Blood Fairy suddenly said after Yin Tianfan had walked for 1,000 steps. Lu Li frowned and was about to ask. However, a white flame suddenly appeared over there, and the bronze glow in Yin Tianfan's hand dimmed. Then, his entire body ignited with raging flames. Come back, Lu Li yelled. Yin Tianfan cried out in pain. He stepped back at the top of his speed and rolled around on the ground. Brother Fan, Tianfan, everyone was taken aback. They gathered around. Yin Tianfan's armor was melted. His body was charred. After he rolled around, he passed out. Qingrui, feed him the fragrance pellet. Yin Ruolin shouted. Yin Qingrui carried Yin Tianfan and fed him the pellet. They were relieved to make sure that Yin Tianfan was still alive. Buzzing, Yin Qingrui put Yin Tianfan into his interspatial artifact and went in to tend to him as well. Everyone looked at each other. They were panicking and did not know what to do. Yin Ruolin walked over and picked up the bronze. Her eyes dimmed down. She sighed, turned to Lu Li and asked, Lu Li, is there really no other way? Yes, Lu Li said calmly. Everyone seemed to have come back to life. They all looked at Lu Li with great interest. Yin Ruolin's eyes glowed. She asked with hope, What is it? Chapter 2366. Unrulan was speechless. Luli wanted to go through the sea of fire with his pathetic abilities? Was he out his mind? Luli shrugged his shoulders, ignoring everyone's stares. But he stared at the bronze in Unrulan's hand and said, "Can I borrow your holy weapon fragment?" Unrulan was stunned. The other disciples of the Un family became nervous as well. Holy weapon fragment was a treasure. How could Luli ask to borrow it? Although there were 3 treasures on the other side, it was hard to say if their value was comparable to this ancient bronze. What if Luli ran away after taking the treasures? Maybe he could crack the runes, but he pretended that he couldn't. What if his real purpose was to get the holy weapon fragment out of him? Unrulan was stunned for a moment. Then, she handed the bronze to Luli without hesitation. The crippled Zen master trusted and valued Luli, and he was Xingxi's friend. Unrulan would accept it even if Luli tricked her of the bronze. Luli nodded. He dashed into the heaven separation bead and began to consume the bronze by force. He had the relic, but he was not used to taking it out easily. It was safe at the Un family, but he had to be on guard. The main thing was that his abilities seemed to be weak, which could arouse covetous eyes. The bronze belonged to Un Tianfan, and it had his spiritual mark. Consuming it would be troublesome. Luli was not in a hurry. He consumed it bit by bit. Since Un Tianfan was unreliable, Luli would have to rely on himself. Otherwise, they might be trapped to death in there. It took Luli 5 days to consume the bronze. Un Tianfan had woken up, but the flames not only burned his body, but also hurt his soul. It would take some time for him to recover. Buzzing. Right at that moment, hundreds of miles away to the left, 2 people came out. They were far away, but they could see them clearly. Song family. Unrulan's pretty face turned cold. The people from the Song clan had come in so quickly. It seemed like their divine inscription experts were very strong as well, not weaker than Luli. Buzzing, every once in a while, someone would come in. Those warriors didn't move around after they came in. They looked over with alertness. Some of them were staring at the 3 treasures in the distance with excitement. Whoosh, after waiting for a while, more than 60 people had entered. 2 people suddenly flew up and flew in the direction of the treasure. The 2 of them were engulfed in flames, and they screamed miserably as they fell. They rolled a few times on the ground before being burned to ashes. Ha ha! Someone immediately laughed out loud. The people from the Song clan were really reckless. They actually dared to barge in so recklessly. Weren't they courting death? It was a pity that only 2 of them were flying around. If all of them were flying around, it would be fun. The expressions of the people on the other side instantly turned cold. The Song family side was extremely furious. However, the distance between the 2 sides was too far. Even if they released a long-range attack, it wouldn't have much power. There was no need to waste time. "Don't move!" A handsome young man with curly hair shouted coldly. Everyone obediently sat down at the side. This person was the first young master of Song clan, Song Long. In Song clan, he had even more prestige than Un Tianfan. The people on the other side also started to search for the divine inscriptions. Evidently, they had a divine inscriptionist expert among them. If not, they wouldn't have been able to reach here so quickly. Song Long didn't look at the 3 treasures. Instead, he looked at Unrulan with a glint of cruelty in his eyes. It was as if he wanted to hang Unrulan up and torture her. As a matter of fact, Song Long's main purpose was not to hunt for treasures or to kill Un Tianfan, but to capture Unrulan. If he could capture Unrulan and have fun with her, it would be the most enjoyable thing for him. The 2 sides confronted each other for a day or 2. Then, both sides felt bored and sat down with their legs crossed. One side was waiting for Luli to make a move, and the other side was waiting for their rune warriors to crack the formation. Luli came out from cultivation after half a month. He had taken control of the ancient bronze, so he could use it to break through the fire formation. He teleported out and saw that Song Long and the others had arrived. Luli frowned. The rune warriors over there were powerful as well. "Luli, how are you?" Unrulan walked over and asked with concern. Luli nodded and said, I have taken control of the bronze. I will try to break through later. How confident are you? Unrivaled asked with concern. Don't take the risk if you are not confident. If you die, she will be sad. Don't worry. Luli smiled and said, I don't know if I can make it or not, but at least I can make sure that I won't die. Everyone looked over. Some were curious, some were doubtful, and some were looking forward to seeing how long Luli could stay in there. Whoosh! Luli walked over in strides. When he reached the edge of the rune, he activated the bronze in his hand. Rays of light came out and enveloped Luli. The rune on the bronze alerted Songlong's team. Many people looked over with surprise and confusion. Luli didn't look familiar. Why did he have the holy weapon fragment? Buzzing, the rune on the ground was triggered. Streaks of dark blue flames swept out. Luli felt he had jumped into a sea of fire. Even though the flames were blocked out by the glow, the heat still seeped in. Luli's skin was boiling hot. Of course, this was nothing for Luli. His physical body had not made much progress over the years, but it was improving. He should be able to survive a blow from a warrior at the initial stage of the fourth tribulation realm with his physical body alone. Luli walked forward step by step. The flames were growing and the temperature was rising. His robe and hair could not stand it any longer. Smoke came out and they were gradually burned away. Unrivaled and the others looked away at once. Luckily, Luli was wearing a pair of golden shorts, which was a piece of treasure. It was heat-resistant and fire-resistant. Gradually, Luli's hair and robe were burned away. He had reached the area where enchantment was. He took a deep breath and stopped. Dragon-weaving skill. Strands of divine energy began to move around in his body according to some strange trajectory. Gradually, a powerful chi and energy began to spread out from his body. It was like a beast was awakening. Strands of chi and energy spread out and filled the entire hall. Everyone was taken aback. Many from the En family were taken aback. Luli was a hidden, powerful warrior. His chi and energy were so strong that he was stronger than enchantment. This is good. Luli was filled with excitement as he felt his body filled with power. He took a step forward and white flames burst out from underneath him. The scorching heat made Luli's body emit black smoke. Okay, even though smoke was coming out, it was only a flesh wound. Luli could stand it. He used the bronze sword to move forward. In the time for a dozen blinks, he had covered 3,000 steps. Impressive. En family warriors cheered. Anyways, the fact that Luli could go further than enchantment was admirable. He had given them hope. Luli had said that he could leave as long as he could get the 3 treasures. Master, we cannot go any further. Luli walked for 6,000 steps in one go. Blood Fairy said, the patterns have changed again. The flames will be stronger. I don't think you can stand it. Again? Chapter 2367. Let's see. Now that he was here, Luli could not leave at once. He made up his mind and pressed on. Hundreds of steps later, the flames in front of him changed. Balls of dark flames emerged and enveloped Luli. He was on fire. This time, it was not just his skin that was burning. The flames had entered his body. His entire body felt like it was on fire. Step back. Without any hesitation, Luli quickly retreated. In an instant, he was back. He rolled around on the ground as well, trembling in pain. Hurry up and heal him. En Qingxi shouted anxiously. En Shinrui took Luli into the interspatial artifact at once and threw him into a pond. Then, he was fed with top-level healing pellets. Luli's wounds seemed to be serious. That being said, his body was strong, and he could step back quickly. Therefore, the flames did not inflict serious injuries on him. He only sustained some flesh wounds. Luli crawled up and sat in the pond. He noticed that the water in the pond was not regular water. It was a special kind of pellet that could heal flesh wounds. Thanks to the top-level elixirs and the holy water in the pond, Luli's external injuries were almost healed in just over a day. But he didn't climb out of the pond. He had already fallen asleep by the edge of the pond. The dragon skill did have side effects. After more than 2 hours, Luli began to feel tired. For hours later, he could not even keep his eyes open. 6 hours later, he could not stand it any longer and passed out. Inchunrei was not worried to see that Lu Li was only in a coma and his wounds were healing fast. He thought Lu Li's soul was wounded like In Tian Fan and he needed a rest. Lu Li slept for 2 days. When he woke up, he felt refreshed. Not only were his wounds healed, but he also felt his body was stronger. Yes, I have. Lu Li was overjoyed after he checked carefully. He pondered for a while and vaguely figured it out. Perhaps the dragon weaving technique had temporarily raised his physical body to a new height and stimulated all the potential in his body. Then, the powerful flames burned his physical body, severely injuring it and further stimulating his body's potential. Finally, the holy water and top-grade healing medicine had healed and nourished his physical body. In other words, his body had gone through 3 transformations: stimulation, destruction, and rebirth. In these 3 transformations, the physical body would naturally become stronger after going through the baptism. Lu Li felt like he had consumed more than a dozen elixirs. All right, Lu Li climbed up, put on a new robe, and walked around. He felt better than ever. He sat on the ground with his legs crossed and began to cultivate. 2 hours later, In Rui came in. Seeing Lu Li cultivating on the ground, In Rui walked over with joy and asked, Lu Li, how do you feel? I'm fine, I've recovered. Lu Li opened his eyes and said with a smile, your holy water is pretty good. It has a strong recovery ability. Of course, In Rui said proudly, this is the immortal chalcedony. It is extremely rare. I obtained it with great difficulty. I obtained it from an ancient ruin. If I were to sell this chalcedony, it would be at least 10 billion divine stone. 10 billion. Lu Li curled his lips. This superfamily was really rich. They could easily give out tens of billions. The Mu family had given Lu Li 10 billion divine stone, and the family's treasury was almost emptied. Lu Li stood up and said, let's go out. Okay. In Rui led Lu Li out. In Rulin came over and asked with concern. Her eyes were filled with concern, which made many young masters jealous. How did you recover so fast? In Rulin asked with curiosity. In Tian Fan was still cultivating. His soul and vitality hadn't recovered yet. It might take him a month to recover. Lu Li answered casually, I am born pretty gifted. Ha ha ha. In Ruolan laughed beautifully. In fact, tears almost came out of her eyes from her laughter. Her charming and flirtatious demeanor made countless people stare at her. Many were even more jealous. That being said, Lu Li had proven himself with his abilities, so they didn't show their jealousy. Okay, enough of this. Where's the bronze? Give it to me. Lu Li reached out his hand. In Ruolin asked with confusion. What? You still want to go? Yes. Lu Li nodded and said, if we don't, we will all be trapped here. We have to try. Don't take the risk. In Ruolin shook her head and said, you can't stand the black flames. Don't go looking for trouble. You can die in there if you are not careful. I know what I'm doing. Lu Li said after some thoughts. The black flames can help me refine my body. My body can grow stronger. Maybe after a few tries, I will be able to stand it. In Ruolin's eyes were wide open. She asked, are you sure? Lu Li nodded. In Ruolin took out the bronze and handed it to him. Lu Li dashed into the formation of fire directly. Flames were stirred up immediately. Lu Li had already activated the bronze artifact. Rays of light came out and enveloped him. Whoosh! Lu Li strode over quickly. When he reached the area of white flames, he released the dragon manipulation skill and strode forward again. Why is Patriarch Lu doing it again? I thought Patriarch Lu couldn't stand it anymore. The black flames are so horrifying. What is he doing? I don't know. I don't understand. Maybe Patriarch Lu wants to test something? Patriarch Lu is a brave warrior. He was burnt to such a state a few days ago, and he is still going. He is a real warrior. Warriors of Yin family began to discuss. Many had a glimmer of hope. Lu Li would not go looking for trouble for no reason. There must be a deeper meaning behind his actions. Song Yin, what are the Yin family warriors doing? On the other side, Song Long asked a purple-haired young man as he watched Lu Li dashing into the formation of fire. The purple-haired young man looked at Lu Li and said, "I don't think he is going for the treasures." "Not for the treasures?" Song Long had a domineering look. He was young, but he was ambitious. He looked at Song Yin, asking for his opinion. Song Yin explained, "The divine runes here are very hard to break, or rather, impossible to break. I feel that the core of the formation here should be above those 3 treasures. Maybe if we obtain those 3 treasures, we can easily break through the divine inscriptions here." "That is possible." Song Long nodded after some thoughts. Then he said, "Later, when they go back, I will go and see if I can get the 3 treasures. Brother Long, don't be impulsive." Song Yin shook his head and said, "Let Brother Jaw go. You are our backbone. Nothing can happen to you." "What had happened to me?" Song Long sneered and said, "A warrior at the peak of the second tribulation can go into the area of black flames. Do you think I can't compete with him? It's not like I don't have holy weapon fragments." Chapter 2368. Whoosh! Louis did not last long in the black flames. Previously, he lasted for the time for 1 breath. This time, he lasted for half a breath longer. When he felt he could not stand it any longer, he flew back and said to Yin Xingrui from the distance, "Young Master Rui, help me." Yin Xingrui rushed over at once. He put Lu Li into his interspatial ring and threw him into the pond. Then he took out some top-level healing pellets to treat Lu Li. Lu Li rolled around in the pond for a bit. Then he sat up, clenched his teeth, and started to cultivate. But not long afterward, he could not stand it any longer and passed out. "Why do you have to do this?" Yin Xingrui sighed. He sat on the side with his legs crossed, waiting for Lu Li to wake up. He did not understand why Lu Li was doing this. The flames were horrifying. There were still thousands of steps left. As far as Yin Xingrui could tell, Lu Li would not be able to stand it. Song Long took actions after Lu Li left. He took out a golden bead with a beautiful rock on it and many divine patterns. One look, and one could tell that it was a piece of treasure. He walked toward the area of flames slowly. Unrivaled and the others became nervous. If Song Long got the 3 treasures, then it was highly likely that he would leave this place. In that case, Unrivaled and the others would not be able to survive. The golden bead glowed and blocked the flames. Song Long walked forward steadily. When he reached the area of white flames, the glow of the bead was suppressed. He seemed to be in pain. "Brother Long, step back." Song Yin shouted anxiously. Song Long made up his mind and pressed on. He believed that he, as the future family patriarch of the Song family, could survive if Lu Li, a warrior at the peak of the second tribulation, could. 100 steps, 500 steps. Finally, Song Long could not stand it anymore. Flames were rising from his body. He rolled around on the ground in pain. The Song family warriors were shouting in anxiety. Someone even rushed over, trying to save him. Boy, Song Long's reaction was not bad. He slapped the ground with one hand, and his body shot back like an arrow. He rolled on the ground, looking even more miserable than Yin Tian Fan. "Ha ha ha ha." Yin family warriors laughed. Some even mocked Song Long, which enraged the Song family warriors. It was just that the distance between the 2 sides was so far. Song Long hadn't even gotten close to the area of the black flames. It was indeed a little embarrassing to argue. Song Long was taken into the spatial divine tool for treatment. The 2 sides were in an uproar for a moment, but they quickly calmed down. The eyes of the people on both sides were filled with worry, not knowing what to do. 3 days later, Lu Li came out full of energy and dashed towards the area of flames again. This surprised both sides. Was Lu Li a masochist? Must you burn yourself for no reason? Let me suffer all kinds of pain and torture? This time, Lu Li stayed in the area of black flames for the time for 3 breaths before he flew back. As soon as he came back, he went into Yin Xingrui's interspatial artifact. Am I seeing things? Elder Lu seems to be persevering longer and longer. That's right, I feel it too. It seems like I persisted for a breath of time longer than before. Could it be that Elder Lu is trying to increase his resistance to fire. No, I feel that he is tempering his body. I can clearly feel that his body is getting stronger. Is that even possible? The people in the surroundings immediately began to discuss spiritedly. They were extremely surprised, and many people's faces revealed expressions of joy. If Lu Li could stay longer in the black flames, wouldn't he be able to get closer to the platform? Get the 3 treasures? 3 days later, Lu Li showed up on time and rushed into the area of flames. This time, everyone was excited. They stared at Lu Li, trying to see if he could stay longer in the flames. 5 breaths. When Lu Li stepped back, the crowd burst into cheers. Even though it was only the time for 2 breaths, it was a real improvement. Flames of this level would either be burned to death upon contact, or they wouldn't be burned to death if they could withstand it. This time, everyone could sense that Lu Li's physical strength was indeed getting stronger. In other words, he was tempering his body in the flames, and his physical strength was improving. Lu Li had said that if he could get the 3 treasures, he could crack the formation of 2 supreme axes and bring everyone out. This time, no one was cultivating. They were waiting for Lu Li to come out in 3 days. Lu Li's physical body was so strong that he could recover fast. He had recovered so quickly after being burnt. 3 days later, Lu Li came out again. He rushed toward the formation of fire again. This time, he lasted longer for the time for 10 breaths and walked for more than 100 steps. It was only 100 steps, and Lu Li didn't speed up. If he were faster, he could get to the platform in the time for 10 breaths. Of course, nobody could be sure if there were more powerful flames on the platform. Lu Li didn't dare to rush in recklessly. He had to take his time. What? Go and tell Brother Long. If we don't think of something, the treasures will be taken away by that warrior at the peak of the second tribulation. Brother Long has been resting for so long. Is he still not recovered? The Tsang family was getting anxious. It was evident that Lu Li was staying longer and longer in the black flames. At this rate, it would be too late. The 3 treasures would all be in Lu Li's hands. Song Long was still resting, but when he heard the news, he was powerless. His injuries were too serious. It would take him at least half a month to recover. It was pointless to go out now. Song Long had to send out a message to calm down and not to act rashly. After all, Lu Li was too far away. Even if they were to use their most powerful skills and treasures, they could not inflict much harm on him. On the 18th day, for the 4th time, Lu Li went into the area of black flames. This time, he could stay in there for almost an unlimited amount of time. That was right. The black flames could no longer inflict fatal harm on him. As long as Lu Li continued to take the elixirs, theoretically, he could stay in the black flames forever. Lu Li was strolling leisurely in the courtyard, getting closer to the 3 treasures. Yin family and Tsang family warriors had their hearts in their mouths. They all looked at Lu Li with anticipation. 1,000 steps, 500 steps, 300 steps. Song Long and Yin Tianfan were alarmed. Their wounds were almost healed. As soon as they came out, they stared at Lu Li. As Lu Li walked toward the platform step by step, their eyes were filled with something else. Lu Li was nervous as well. Blood Fairy had told him that there should be no other special flames around the platform. But this Hall of 7 Tones was so strange. Who could tell if something sinister was going to happen? Lu Li took out a pellet and slowly walked toward the platform. When he was 10 feet away from the platform, he sensed a fatal danger. At the same time, Blood Fairy said, "Master, step back." Whoosh! Lu Li turned into a stream of light and flew back. The stage suddenly glowed, and the horn flew up to the sky. Then there was a series of demon-like howls coming from the horn. Plop! Chapter 2369. In addition to Lu Li, everyone else was holding their heads. Some were screaming in pain, some were rolling on the ground, some were twitching, and some were banging their heads against the ground. Yin Tianfan, Yin Rulin, and Song Long were protected by advanced enchanted souls. Lu Li's enchanted soul was even more powerful. Even so, none of them could survive the soul attack from the horn. Fortunately, The horn only sounded 5 times before it stopped. The stinging pain in everyone's soul stopped, but their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. That feeling was horrifying. It was as if demons were trying to tear their souls apart. Whoosh, Luli flew back. Because he had retreated quickly, he had already reached the area of blue flames. Even though he tumbled on the ground, he was not seriously injured. But he still went into Qingrui's interspatial artifact, which would speed up his recovery. In the holy water, Luli still had lingering fears. That horn was powerful. It must be a piece of treasure from the ancient times. The horn was triggered before he could even get close to it. If he were to get close, he would have to roll around in the black flames. He would be burnt to a crisp. I cannot take the risk. I must continue to improve my body. Luli thought about it. His body must be improved. At the very least, he would not be burned when he rolled around in the black flames. In this way, he would not die even if he was hit by the horn. The warriors outside were still in a state of shock, but many were excited to see the horn that had fallen to the ground. The horn was so powerful. If they could get it, they would be able to dominate everyone. The warriors of the Tsang family felt their hearts were weighed down. Luli could get close to the platform. It was highly possible that he could get the 3 treasures. If Luli could get the horn, the warriors of the Tsang family would be in danger. Tsang Long gathered 5 or 6 warriors and went into the interspatial artifact to discuss countermeasures. As soon as Yin Tianfan came out, he began to discuss with Yin Ruolin in excitement. They were trying to figure out a way to help Lu Li get the horn. Let's go in and talk. Yin Tianfan told Yin Ruolin and the others. Yin Ruolin frowned, but did not overthink. She went into Yin Qingrui's interspatial artifact with Yin Tianfan. Lu Li was still tending to his wounds. His body was recovering fast. Yin Ruolin blushed as soon as she came in. Just now, Lu Li didn't feel anything when he was burnt. Now that his wounds were healed, he looked like he was taking a bath in a pond. Naturally, he felt different. They went into the castle. After a few days, Lu Li had recovered. He put on his robe and followed Yin Qingrui into the castle. Elder Lu Ruolan still has a sacred weapon fragment. Do you want me to lend it to you? Do you think you can use 2 saint weapon fragments to withstand the flames and obtain the 3 treasures? Yin Tianfan had reached a conclusion. He decided to lend Yin Ruolin's holy weapon pieces to Lu Li. 2 holy weapon pieces should be enough to stop the black flames. No need, no need. Lu Li shook his head. It didn't matter how many holy weapon fragments he had. The horn directly attacked his soul. If his body couldn't withstand the black flames, then it would be pointless to take more holy weapon fragments. The bronze could block part of the heat, but the key was that his physical body could withstand it. Lu Li explained, I need to refine my body for a while longer. When my body is stronger, not even the black flames can hurt me. By then, I can figure out a way to get the 3 treasures. I see. Yin Tianfan nodded slightly. Then his eyes turned as he took out a jade box from his space ring and said, Elder Lu, this is a top-grade body-tempering divine herb. It was originally given to me by the family. You can have it. What? Lu Li was stunned. The elixir given to Yin Tianfan by the Yin family must be the best. Lu Li shook his head and said, never mind. I will refine my body for a few more days, and I should be able to stand the flames. Young Master Yin, you can have the elixir. I don't want to cultivate the supreme body. Yin Tianfan said with a smile. This elixir is of little use to me. In other words, it is a waste. Our family has some body-refining elixirs. I will ask for one later. Patriarch Lu, don't put it off. If you can get the 3 treasures, not only will you make us stronger, you can also help us deal with the Tsang family. Compared to that, this elixir is nothing. Yin Ruolin also said, Lu Li, don't put it off. Our family has more. Okay. Lu Li didn't refuse. He took over the elixir and said, okay, I will consume it now and then figure out a way to get the 3 treasures. I will only take one of the 3 and the rest will belong to the Yin family. How can you do that? Yin Tianfan was surprised. Then he waved his hand and said, we have agreed that the treasures belong to whoever gets them, including the disciples of other families. If you can get them this time, they will all belong to you. Huh. Ha, don't argue about this. Luli waved his hand and said, I may not get them yet. We will talk about it later. Luli went to her room and began to consume that elixir. When he opened the jade box, he smelled a refreshing fragrance that made him feel comfortable from head to toe. This is good. Seeing that the elixir was about to fly away, Luli grabbed it and began to consume it. He could not let the elixir go to waste. He consumed it for 3 days. When he opened his eyes, he was a bit disappointed. He had thought that the top elixir given by the En family would be so powerful that it could transform his body and improve his strength. However, the improvement was not obvious. It should be the same as when he went to the area of flames for dozens of times. I have asked for too much. Luli forced a smile. His body was already so strong that it was impossible for him to improve by leaps and bounds unless he could get his hands on some amazing elixir. Nobody in the En family cultivated the supreme body. The elixir for body refinement could only be of the first grade, not the supreme grade. One elixir could improve him so much. Luli would not be satisfied if he wanted more. Get out. Luli decided to cultivate in the black flames for a couple of months to improve his body. In this way, he would have a higher chance of success when he went to get more treasures. Whoosh! Luli rushed into the area of flames with the bronze in his hand. Then he sat with his legs crossed in the area of black flames, letting the flames burn his body. He would go back to tend to his wounds when he could not stand it anymore. A day later, Luli came back. His body was charred, and he went into En Rui's interspatial ring. 3 days later, he came out again and dashed into the area of flames. The cycle repeated. The Tsang family was quiet. Song Long and the others did not show up. The En family warriors were excited, waiting for the day when Lu Li could get the treasures. 9 days later, Song Long suddenly came out with several warriors. Seeing Lu Li sitting in the area of flames, Song Long flew up and dashed toward Lu Li like an arrow. Lu Li, watch out! Master, someone is coming. Unrivaled and Blood Fairy shouted at the same time. Lu Li opened his eyes at once and stepped back without any hesitation. Without absolute confidence, Lu Li did not want to fight Song Long head-on. You want to go? Too late. Song Long had dashed into the area of white flames. He held the golden bead in one hand and a piece of red tile in the other. He smashed at Lu Li, holy weapon fragment. Chapter 2370. Boom, boom, boom. The red tile came crashing down. The tile was very small, only the size of a palm, but it gave people the feeling that a piece of the sky was falling down. Similarly, the bronze let out a bright light as well. The glow was dazzling. In an instant, the bronze and the tile bumped into each other. Boom! At that moment, it was as if heaven and earth were collapsing. The space where the collision took place was collapsing. Many people felt their souls were trembling. Boom, boom, boom. A shockwave swept across. Even though Lu Li had stepped back at once, he was still involved. He was smashed away. His back was covered in blood. Clearly, he was badly injured. The Tsang Dragon's attack was fast. The two pieces of holy weapon collided not far away from Lu Li. The collision of holy weapons was so horrifying that Lu Li was inevitably seriously injured. Whoosh! Lu Li stepped back quickly. At the same time, he flew the bronze back. He was on fire. Since the bronze was not with him, Lu Li could not shield himself from the fire. Even though Lu Li's physical body had improved a lot recently, he could not stand it. He was on fire. Luckily, Lu Li was fast enough. He retreated into the area of white fire. The white fire had no effect on him. It could not hurt him one bit. Whoosh! Even though he was in pain, he stepped back quickly and flew the bronze back. The bronze belonged to En Tian Fan, and he could not let Song Long take it away. Lu Li took control of the bronze and took it back. When he was back to the safe area, he could not stand it anymore. He rolled around on the ground and passed out. Lu Li, Unrivaled, and the others came over. En Rui took Lu Li into the interspatial artifact at once, threw him into the pond, and fed him the pellet. Song Long. En Tian Fan glared furiously at Song Long in the distance and bellowed. Song Long flew back while laughing out loud. There was a trace of pity in his eyes. If Luli had reacted a bit slower, he would have been dead by now, and the bronze would have fallen into Song Long's hand. Brother Long, you are so awesome. Brother Long is amazing. That little bastard was almost killed by you. Hee. It was Brother Long. Even Yin Tian Fan was easily suppressed by him, let alone a mere second tribulation martial artist. The next time this little bastard dares to covet those 3 treasures, Brother Long will kill him. The morale of the Tsang family was greatly boosted. Although they didn't know how to get out now, they were happy to be able to suppress the people from the Yin family. We can't get out, and we can't let you out either. Lu Li's injuries were quite serious this time. Not only was he injured by the shard of the holy weapon, but he was also burnt by the flames. Otherwise, he wouldn't have fainted right away with his super strong constitution. Now that Lu Li was seriously injured, there was nothing they could do. Unrivaled told them to cultivate and rest. She told them to be patient and wait for Lu Li to recover. Brother Fan, Unrivaled, and Yin Tian Fan talked for a while. Unrivaled decided to give her holy weapon fragment to Yin Tian Fan. Next time Lu Li went over, Yin Tian Fan could protect him from afar. In this way, Lu Li would be safer. Otherwise, if Lu Li went over, Song Long would come out and attack again. Attacks were not a big deal, but if Lu Li died, then it would be a big deal. Lu Li spent a whole month healing. He had such a strong healing ability, but it took him such a long time. It was not hard to imagine how serious his injuries were. When Lu Li recovered, Unrivaled and the others came to discuss with him. Lu Li thought about it and said, I will refine my body for a while outside the black flames. When I am not afraid of the black flames, I will go and get the 3 treasures. Okay. Yin Tian Fan nodded and said, go ahead. I will protect you. Song Long will not be able to sneak up on you so easily. They left. Lu Li dashed into the area of black flames. But he was only at the edge, trying to stay as far away from the Tsang family as possible. Yin Tian Fan made a move, but he was only in the area of blue flames, not the one with white flames. The Tsang family came to their senses. Song Long was called out from his interspatial artifact. Seeing Yin Tian Fan standing in the distance, Song Long's face was clouded. Yin Tian Fan's abilities were similar to his. It would be difficult for Song Long to sneak up on Lu Li. What was more, Lu Li was on guard. They were all outside the area of black flames, far away. It would be hard for Song Long to sneak up on Lu Li. Song Yin. Song Long thought about it and said to Song Yin, can you touch the divine patterns here? Can you kill that warrior at the peak of the second tribulation and Yin Tian Fan with the counterforce? No. Song Yin shook his head and said, the divine patterns here are connected to the main ones in the Hall of 7 Tones. If we touch the divine patterns here, we will all die if the main ones backfire. Then forget it. Song Long retracted his head. The Lord Divine inscription of the 7 Tones Palace was something that even their patriarch couldn't break. He thought for a moment and transmitted his voice to another young master. Song He, let's join forces and force Yin Tian Fan to retreat. After that, we'll kill that brat. Otherwise, if that brat obtains the bugle horn, we'll all be finished. Okay. The other powerful young master of the Tsang family nodded. They discussed for a while and made some arrangements. Then, they both went into the interspatial artifact. Yin Tian Fan and Lu Li had been paying attention. Even though Song Long and Song Yin were gone, they did not let their guard down. Lu Li refined his body in the flames. He gradually controlled the divine energy he poured into the bronze. The glow here would be weaker, and the flames would burn his body. In many people's eyes, his behavior was self-torturing. If this person didn't have a problem with his brain, he would be extremely cruel to himself. If it was a group of young masters and ladies, they wouldn't do this. Lu Li was not mentally ill. He was being cruel to himself. He had been doing this all the time. His body could withstand pain. How could his strength increase so easily if he did not suffer? Lu Li thought it would be worthwhile if he could improve his body through some suffering. 3 days later, Lu Li's injuries were serious. He came back. Song Long didn't do anything. It seemed that Tian Fan didn't dare to do anything rash. After 3 days of recovery, Lu Li came out full of vigor. He went to refine his body again. Tian Fan went with him as well. Lu Li and Tian Fan had been on the alert in case Song Long and the others would sneak up on them. Still, Song Long didn't do anything. 3 days later, Lu Li came back and another 3 days passed. The cycle repeated. Lu Li was torturing himself and his body was improving. Song Long didn't take any actions. He seemed to be cultivating in the interspatial artifact. The other Tsang family warriors were cultivating as well. Only one young man was studying the divine runes. He must be trying to crack it. On the 19th day, Lu Li was still in the flames, and his injuries were serious. When he was about to leave, more than a dozen warriors of the Tsang family took action at the same time. They all launched long-range attacks at Song Long. Chapter 2371. Song Long and the others had planned this beforehand. They had been preparing for this day for more than a dozen days. They had calculated this scene beforehand as well. The more than a dozen people at the front were feints. The real attackers were Song Long and Song He. The long-range attacks of the more than a dozen attracted many people's attention. The Yin family warriors were all attracted by them. None of them noticed Song Long and Song He who were moving in the blur. The people from the Yin clan did not notice, but Tian Fan was the first to notice because the two of them were attacking him and two murderous intents had locked onto him. Point. In a time for one breath, the two had reached Lu Li. Then, each of them released a powerful attack. They didn't use their holy weapon shards because they needed to withstand the flames. Song Long took out a spear and stabbed at Tian Fan. A shadow of the spear pierced through the void and appeared directly in front of Tian Fan's head. Song He took out a bow and shot out more than a dozen arrows at once. Almost at the same time as Song Long's spear, the arrows were aimed at Tian Fan. Tian Fan was strong, but he had to step back or he would be injured when he was faced with two powerful warriors of the same realm. He was still in the flames, and he could lose his life if he was not careful. Therefore, he shouted at Lu Li at once, "Patriarch Lu, step back." While they were attacking, Lu Li had come back to his senses. He had been through many battles of life and death. His reflexes were fast. He knew at once that Song Long and Song He's real target was him. He flew up and stepped back at once. But as soon as he stepped out of the black flames, Song Long and Song He began to attack him. Whoosh, 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 Song Long also made a move with his spear. This was different from the previous one. Previously, it was a feint. This was the real move. Song Long knew that he could not kill Tian Fan. He just wanted to knock him back. As for Lu Li, Song Long had to kill him. Song Long's spear had a hint of yellow air around it. Air of pallid flames. This kind of air was hard to come by. It was an overbearing energy in heaven and earth. This kind of air of pallid flames was rare. Every strand of it was priceless, much more valuable than Yin Shengrui's holy water. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. On the other side, Song He shot out hundreds of arrows in an instant. It felt like the sky was filled with shadows of arrows. The space around Lu Li was torn apart. Countless shadows of arrows were shooting toward Lu Li. Many horrifying killing intent locked on a Lu Li. Not good. Unrivaled and the others were panicking. The two most powerful warriors of the Song family had made a move, and they had released such horrifying attacks. Could Lu Li survive and come back? Lu Li, watch out for the Song Dragon's attack. Unrivaled's gaze was fixed on that yellow spear shadow, and she transmitted her voice anxiously. Without Unrivaled's reminder, Lu Li had already locked his eyes on that yellow spear shadow. Song He shot out hundreds of arrows. Every one of them looked horrifying, powerful, and fatal. But as a matter of fact, these attacks were not powerful enough to kill Lu Li. In Lu Li's eyes, these hundreds of attacks were actually coordinated attacks, feints. The real killer move was the seemingly unremarkable spear shadow and the wisp of yellow aura on the spearhead. Lu Li did not know what the pale flame's chi was, but he knew that once he was touched by the yellow gas, he would die for sure. In an instant, Luli made up his mind. His heaven separation bead glowed. A wind warcraft appeared and dashed towards the yellow spear shadow. Boom! The wind demonic beast was very fast. When it collided with the spear shadow, the wind demonic beast burst apart like a clay jar, unable to withstand a single blow. Luli's pupils contracted. The speed of the spear shadow was not affected much. The heaven separation bead glowed as Luli sent out 3 wind warcraft in a row. Boom, boom, boom. On the other side, the hundreds of arrows were coming as well. They landed on Luli one after another, and then there were horrifying explosions. The space around was torn apart, and the noise of the explosions was deafening. The shockwave blew away the flames around, raising the temperature in the hall. Luli was inevitably injured after the hundreds of attacks landed on him. He was wounded all over. His skin and flesh were torn apart. His bones were exposed in many places, and some were broken. Luli could not avoid the hundreds of attacks. He had to take them head-on. He seemed to be in a miserable state, but for him, they were only flesh wounds. Luli paid no attention to them. He stared at the spear shadow. If the 3 wind warcraft he sent out still could not stop the spear shadow, then he would be in trouble. Boom, boom, boom. The 3 wind warcraft charged at the spear shadow one after another. All of them were crushed like clay statues. Luckily, after 4 wind warcraft were killed, the spear shadow slowed down. Go! Luli retreated quickly without any hesitation. The spear shadow could not catch up with him anymore. Luli successfully escaped and flew back to the Yin family. What a pity, Song Long and Song Yin sighed. That was a good chance. Yin Tianfan was beaten back, and the 2 of them successfully killed Luli. Song He's attack also trapped Luli. Song Long's attack was supposed to kill Luli. Unexpectedly, Luli sent out some beasts to fend off Song Long's attack and successfully escaped. Luli, are you okay? Yin Rulin and Yin Tianfan came over. Seeing that Luli was covered in wounds, Yin Rulin and Yin Tianfan felt sorry and angry. Luli raised his bloody hand and waved it off. He looked at Song Long and Song He in the distance. Luli was almost killed by Song Long twice. Even if he were made of mud, he would be angry. Originally, there was no hatred between him and the Song family. But this time, there was enmity. A glint of killing intent rose in Luli's eyes. If he had the chance, he would kill Song Long. Luli went into Yin Xingrui's interspatial artifact to tend to his wounds. Song Long and the others had to leave. Song Yin and Yin Xingrui were frustrated. If they could not kill Luli this time, it would be difficult to do so in the future. If Luli got the 3 treasures, it would be their turn to suffer. Song Yin, Song Long came back and gathered Song Yin and the others into the interspatial artifact. Looking at Song Yin, Song Long asked, "You have been studying the divine glyphs for a long time. Have you found anything?" "No." Song Yin sighed and said, "The divine glyphs here are indestructible. The only thing I am sure of is, after the 3 treasures are taken, the divine glyphs here will weaken. By then, we can leave. We cannot get close to the 3 treasures now. We will have to wait for the Yin family to get the treasures and then leave with them." The powerful warriors were upset. That horn was so horrifying. If Luli took it, would it have a chance to survive? "Don't worry about that." Song Yin thought about it and said, "It doesn't matter even if they get the horn. That is an ancient artifact with ancient divine glyphs in it. It is not easy to control them. Without studying them for dozens of years, they will not be able to control them. So, we will wait for them to get the treasures, and then we will leave." "Not necessary?" "Okay." Chapter 2372. After several days of treatment, Luli went back to the area of black flames to refine his body. This time, not only Yin Tianfan, but also Yin Rulin and several others were guarding at the edge of the flames. If Song Long and the others were to take action, they could distract them. This time, Song Long and the others didn't move. Since they couldn't kill Luli before, it would be harder to kill him now. Song Yin said that Luli couldn't use the horn even if he took it. The ancient patterns could not be deciphered in a short time. Without deciphering the patterns, the horn couldn't be used. Song Yin was very accomplished in the study of patterns, even better than Lu Hai. He could tell as well. The three treasures were the core of the formation. As long as they could be taken, the patterns would weaken and everyone could leave. From then on, Lu Li's body refinement was not disturbed by anyone. Every time he was burned, he would recover in the holy water. His physical body was getting stronger, but as time went on, the degree of strengthening decreased. Maybe it was because his physical body was too strong, or maybe the effect of the holy water had weakened. Time moved on. 5 months later, Lu Li's physical body was much stronger than before. His resistance to fire had improved as well. He didn't have to use the holy weapon fragment now. He could withstand the black flames with his physical body alone. Wait, Lu Li suddenly had an idea after he was no longer afraid of fire. Since he could walk in the area of black flames freely, could he take everyone to the exit with the interspatial artifact? As long as they could get out, it wouldn't matter if they couldn't get the three treasures. At least, they wouldn't be trapped here forever. Lu Li shared this idea with others. In Tianfan decided to give a try. He went into Lu Li's interspatial artifact and asked Lu Li to take him through the flames. It turned out that Lu Li was overthinking. As soon as he entered the area of flames, the separation bead began to tremble and In Tianfan was knocked out. I think I have to get the three treasures. Lu Li had no other choice. The Tsang family hadn't done anything, and they wouldn't either. The black flames had no effect on him. He wouldn't die even if he was attacked by the horn. Now was the best time to get the treasures. Lu Li talked with In Tianfan for a while and decided to take action today to see if he could get the three treasures. Just like before, he leisurely rushed toward the area of the black flames, while In Tianfan, Unrivaled, and the others stood guard nearby. On the surface, they looked the same as before, but in fact, everyone was secretly on guard. This was a very crucial moment. In Tianfan and the others believed that Song Long would not sit back and watch Lu Li take the three treasures. He would try to stop Lu Li. Xiao. Lu Li had been moving around slowly in the area of black flames. Suddenly, he sped up and dashed toward the three treasures. The people from the Tsang clan noticed this. Someone sent a message to Tsang Long and the others. However, Tsang Long didn't come out from his spatial god tool. He only sent a message for people to pay close attention. Tsang Long and the others had finished their discussion. They decided not to stop Lu Li from getting the three treasures because it would be hard to stop him anyway. They might as well let Lu Li take them. More importantly, if Lu Li could not obtain the three treasures, the runes here would not be solved and they would not be able to get out. Lu Li was close to the three treasures. He couldn't worry about Song Long anymore. He must stay alert or he might be killed by the inhibition formation on the platform. He approached the platform slowly, holding the heaven separation bead in one hand and the bronze spear in the other. He stared at the horn and his body was tense. He was so far away from the horn that he fell to the ground in pain. How could he be so close now? Once the horn was blown, would he be able to stand it? 100 steps, 10 steps, 5 steps. The horn was right in front of Lu Li. Once again, he sensed a fatal sense of danger in his soul. This time, he did not step back. Instead, he checked with psychic power to make sure that Song Long was not under attack. Then, Lu Li sat down with his legs crossed. Buzzing, the platform glowed, and then the horn flew up, making a sound that sounded like ghosts crying. Lu Li felt his soul was being torn apart. He fell to the ground and rolled around with his head in his hands. In addition to Lu Li, In Tianfan, Unrivaled, and everyone else from the Tsang family and the Yin family, apart from those in the interspatial rings, were rolling around and screaming on the ground with their heads in their hands. At that moment, everyone felt like demons were crawling out from the horn and their souls were being torn apart. Woo, 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 just like before, the horn was blown for a while. The glare from the divine patterns died down and the horn fell down. The pain in Lu Li's head was dying down. Luckily, his body could stand the black flames. He was not hurt even when he rolled around in the flames. After the time for a few breaths, Unrivaled and the others crawled up. Unrivaled went into the interspatial artifact at once to dress up. Xingrue put most of the others into the interspatial artifact. Later, Luli would trigger the horn again. Their souls might be strong, but their souls would be hurt. It was pointless to stay outside. The Tsang family took actions as well. Tsang Long asked most of them to go into the interspatial artifact in case they suffered in vain. Only 3 of the Tsang family stayed outside, and the others went into the interspatial artifact. For this reason, Tian Fan and the others could not afford to be careless. That was what happened to Tsang Long. His sneak attack almost killed Luli. Luli sat up. Without opening his eyes, he asked Blood Fairy, "How is it going?" Just now, when the horn was triggered, the divine patterns must have been triggered. Luli let Blood Fairy out and asked her to check carefully to find a solution. Blood Fairy replied, "There are divine patterns around the platform. Once you get close, the horn will be triggered and the horn will attack automatically. I believe the Master of the Hall of 7 Tones did this on purpose so that those who come in cannot get the 3 treasures." Luli frowned. The Master of the Hall of 7 Tones was a freak. Without the 3 treasures, the divine patterns could not be cracked, and they could not leave. To get the 3 treasures, they must find a way to crack the divine patterns on the platform. This was a vicious cycle. "Can't you do it?" Luli asked. Blood Fairy answered, "I can't. The divine patterns on the platform and the formation of 2 extremes are one. They are both connected to the main divine patterns of the Hall of 7 Tones. Therefore, to get the 3 treasures, you must force your way in and suppress the horn." "Force my way in?" Luli was frustrated. As soon as the horn sounded, his soul could not take it anymore, and he fell to the ground. At that moment, he could not control his body, and he felt his soul was being torn apart. How could he suppress the horn? The horn was an ancient artifact. To suppress it, he had to rely on the Holy Weapon Fragment. Activating the Holy Weapon Fragment required divine energy and control. Luli was rolling on the ground in pain. How could he control the bronze to suppress the horn? "Let's do it." Chapter 2373. Luli decided to give it a try. That being said, he would not go up and fight with brute force. He continued to sit on the side. When the pain in his soul was gone, he walked in again. This time, he took a big step forward and stood below the platform. Buzzing, the runes on the platform glowed. Then, the horn flew up again. From the horn came some ghostly cries and howls. Luli hugged his head and rolled on the ground. This time, he controlled himself with strong willpower. He tried to stay conscious so that his soul could control his body. Luli's willpower had always been strong. This time, he did manage to stay conscious. Veins were popping out on his face. He bit his teeth and tried to stay conscious. After the horn sounded for 5 times, it flew down. Luli lay on the ground, panting in relief. He felt he had used up all his strength. He couldn't even move a finger. Just now, he had a splitting headache as well, but it was not as bad as this time. He had to use his willpower to hold on. Luli's spirit was damaged, and he was exhausted to the extreme. "Patriarch Lu, how are you?" After the time for a dozen breaths, Tian Fan noticed something was wrong. Every time the horn sounded, Luli's soul would be in pain. But as soon as the horn stopped, the pain would be relieved and the damage wouldn't be serious. But Luli seemed to be in trouble. His soul seemed to be damaged. Luli's soul was not hurt, but his spirit was exhausted. He tried to wave his hand and then lay on the ground to rest with his eyes closed. After the time for 1 incense stick to burn, Luli sat up and said something to Tian Fan. He took out 2 soul-nurturing pellets and took them. Then, he closed his eyes and sat down again. A moment later, the weak period of the dragon wrestling skill had come. Luli had to step back. Tian Fan asked, "Luli, what happened to you?" "Nothing. I'm just a bit weak. I will go and have some rest." "Tian Fan, please protect me." Luli waved his hand and went back to the separation bead. He fell asleep right away and slept for 3 days and 3 nights. When he woke up, the weakness in his soul was gone. He was in high spirits. He went out after cultivating for a while. Tian Fan and a few others were still outside. The rest of the people were still in the spatial divine tool, including Unrivaled. This was because the sound of the horn would make people roll on the ground in pain. After all, Unrivaled was a young lady of a prestigious family. Luli didn't say anything. He just greeted Tion Fan, who nodded. Luli rushed over. The people from the Song clan didn't make any moves, but there were 3 people guarding outside. When Luli came to the horn, he stepped onto the platform, and the horn flew up. Luli poured divine energy into it, and the bronze horn glowed. Luli swung the bronze horn in his hand and smashed it at the horn. Woo-woo, the horn let out a horrifying sound. At that moment, Luli began to tremble. He felt pain in his mind as if his soul was being torn apart. Under normal circumstances, Luli would have rolled down with his head in his hands. However, he clenched his teeth and continued to smash at the horn. Boom, boom, boom. Gutong activated his full strength and began to swing. The multicolored light instantly caused the space around him to tremble. A vast amount of divine might radiated outwards, causing the surrounding atmosphere to become extremely oppressive. Boom! The bronze horn landed on the horn. The runes on the horn glowed, but soon they were suppressed by the multicolored light. The glare on the horn weakened, and then it was smashed away by the bronze horn. At this moment, Luli could not stand it anymore. He fell down and landed on the platform. He rolled around for a bit. Since the horn was no longer making a shrill sound, his soul was soothed. Buzzing, however, to Luli's surprise, the runes on the sword next to him suddenly glowed. With a surge of horrifying chi and energy, the sword flew up and stabbed at him. T. Luli was scared out of his wits. He was extremely weak. He was better than last time, but his reaction was slowed down. He could not run away quickly. Similar to the horn, the sword was also covered with dense, ancient runes. It must be powerful. Whoosh! The sword fell down quickly. Many thoughts flashed across Luli's mind. The heaven's separation bead glowed. 3 wind warcraft came out and flew toward the sword. Boom, boom, boom. The wind warcraft turned into minced meat one by one. They could not stop the sword. The sword was only slowed down a bit. The sword was more than 10 feet away. Luli couldn't release the wind warcraft, even if he wanted to. In that split of a second, 2 ideas came to Luli's mind. He had only 2 options. Either he could continue to use the bronze horn to fight against the sword, or could try his best to dodge and see if he could get away from the sword. But he felt it would be difficult to dodge. He felt he was being targeted by the sword. No matter where he went, he would be hit. Hoi! Even though Luli's mind was about to explode, he still made up his mind and used the bronze horn to smash at the sword above his head. Since the horn could be smashed away, Luli believed the ancient sword could be smashed away as well. Boom! The bronze horn and the ancient sword bumped into each other. The space nearby trembled. Surges of killing intent spread out. Half of Luli's body was torn into a bloody mess. Luli felt his vision blurred. He almost passed out. But the fact that the ancient sword was smashed away was the only thing that made Luli happy. He pushed himself up with his hands, trying to get back. Whoosh! A noise came from above. Luli opened his blood-stained eyes and glanced over. He saw the ancient sword flying down again with the force of thunder. Luli's eyes were filled with despair. He was too injured and his spirit was weak. He could no longer use the bronze horn. Even if he took out the relic iron, the outcome would be the same. The ancient sword had locked onto him. He had nowhere to run. He had to fight or die. Patriarch Lu, get back! Tion Fan shouted. Luli wanted to go back, but the sword was locked onto him. Where could he go? Luli had to make up his mind. He swung the bronze horn, poured divine energy into it, and twisted his body to the side. When Luli was twisting his body, he suddenly touched something. Out of instinct, he grabbed it. It was the 3rd piece of treasure, the ring. Buzzing, the moment Luli's hand touched the ring, something strange happened. The ring shone brightly and shone with a boundless radiance. Following that, the entire world fell silent. The radiance of the sword in the sky dimmed, and the horn also lost its luster. Even the flames around it disappeared without a trace at this moment. Bang! The ancient sword smashed down and hit Lu Li's head. Then it rolled to the platform, making a crisp sound. Chapter 2374. A man in the water grabbed a piece of straw. Unexpectedly, the straw glowed. The moment the straw glowed, all the water in the river stopped flowing. Lu Li felt he was like the man in the water. He had lost all hope just now. He didn't expect that a random grab before he died would actually save his life. He moved his body and looked at the dull sword nearby. Suddenly, he understood there were not 3 formation cores in the Hall of Twin Extremes, but 1, and that was the ring. The horn and the ancient sword were there to protect the ring. Only with the ring could the divine glyphs of the Hall of Twin Extremes be broken. Otherwise, it would be pointless to take the horn and the ancient sword. What? In Tian Fan, In Rui, and the others were originally anxious. At this moment, they were also a little confused. They didn't know why the ancient sword suddenly lost its effect when it was clearly about to smash down. They didn't see Lu Li grab the ring. They only saw the glow in his hand. They were confused. What? The 3 warriors of the Tsang family who stayed behind were alerted. One of them poured divine energy into the interspatial artifact at once. Then, Tsang Long came out with several others. The treasures have been taken. Tsang Long came out and looked at the 3 people outside suspiciously. One of them explained at once. Tsang Long looked at Tsang Yin in confusion and asked, "What is going on?" "The ring." Tsang Yin looked at Lu Li from the distance and said, "He has the ring. The ring is the formation core of the Twin Extremes formation. As long as the ring is taken, the formation will be broken." Broken? A glint of coldness rose in Tsang Long's eyes. "Then, can we go over now? Can we take the horn and the ancient sword?" "Brother Long, calm down." Tsang Yin stopped Tsang Long at once and said, "The divine glyphs here are weakening bit by bit. If you go there now, you will still die. Let's wait. I think in 10 days or half a month, we will be able to leave this hall." "What a shame." The 3 treasures, Tsang Long sighed. There was a glint of greed in his eyes. "The ring is the formation core. Is the ring the most precious thing? I wonder what it is. If it is an interspatial ring, there must be many elixirs and materials. If it's not a spatial ring, then it must be a supreme treasure." "Don't worry." Song Yin laughed. "Primordial divine inscriptions. Nobody knows anything about them. Even my master, who has researched divine inscriptions for over 100,000 years, only has a superficial understanding of them. How old is that peak-level second tribulation divine inscriptions? How could he have grasped the ancient divine imprints? We have to stay calm. As long as we find a chance to kill them, all the treasures will be ours. If we don't calm down, our treasures will become theirs." "All right, I'll listen to you." Song Long nodded slightly and retracted his gaze. He thought for a while and gave some instructions to Tsang Yin, then directly returned to the spatial god tool to avoid being envious. "Elder Lu, come back." In Tian Fan finally came to his senses and shouted. Lu Li shook his head and climbed up when he heard the voice. He crawled to the side of the ancient sword and grabbed it in his hand. The ancient sword was easily taken down by him, and he kept it in his heavenly separation pearl without a second thought. Whoosh! His body flashed, and he walked to the side of the bugle horn. After putting away the bugle horn, he quickly leaped back. Plop! When he came back to Yin Tian Fan and the others, Lu Li could not stand it any longer. He fell to the ground and passed out. In Rui put Lu Li back in his spatial god tool at once, and then let everyone out. The divine imprint is gone. The 3 treasures are gone. Did Patriarch Lu take them? Wow, finally we can go out. Calm down. Don't be impulsive. Listen to Brother Fan. Many were cultivating in the spatial god tool. When they were teleported out, all of a sudden, they were shocked at first. Then, they were overjoyed and chattered. Quiet down. In Tian Fan waved his hand and got everyone to calm down. With a solemn expression, he said, "Everyone, be on guard. Guard against the attacks of the Tsang clan. The divine inscriptions here might dissipate at any moment." Lu Hai, go and take a look. Yes. They spread out and stayed alert. Lu Hai began to check the divine imprint. After a moment, Lu Hai's eyes glowed. He said to Een Tian Fan, "Young Master Fan, the divine imprint has weakened. It is just as Patriarch Lu said." "Good. Go on," Een Tian Fan said. "Once the divine imprint is weakened and we can go, let me know at once." Patriarch Lu is badly injured. I think it will take him some time to recuperate. We cannot wait any longer. We must leave at once. Okay. Lu Hai nodded. Een Tian Fan and Een Rulin communicated for a while. Een Rulin didn't seem to be happy. Instead, she looked at Song Long and said, "Song Long can sit still? He must be up to something. We must be careful." I know Song Long's character." Een Tian Fan nodded and said, "Normally, he would have made a move. I don't know what he is up to. Let's wait and see." Een Rulin thought about it and said, "Don't you have a top-level healing herb? Give it to Luli first. The sooner he recovers, the sooner he can consume the horn and the ancient sword. By then, our abilities will be greatly enhanced. It will be a piece of cake for us to suppress Song Long." Een Tian Fan was hesitating. That herb was given to him by his family to save his life. As long as he was still breathing, he could recover after taking that herb. Even the Een family didn't have much of that herb. Een Tian Fan was reluctant to give it to Lu Li so easily. "Okay, don't be so wishy-washy." Een Rulin frowned and said, "Can we make it here without Lu Li? When we get back safely, I will ask Forefather Six for one." "All right." Een Tian Fan forced a smile and took out a jade box. Een Rulin took it over with a smile and went into Een Shengrue's interspatial artifact to tend to Lu Li. Lu Li's injuries were serious. The horn weakened his soul, and the ancient sword hurt him twice. What was more, he used the bronze artifact by force, which made him even more injured. This time, Lu Li was in a coma for 5 days. Een Rulin fed him a rare and precious herb. When he woke up, his wounds were almost healed. He had been soaking in holy water all this time. When Lu Li woke up, he opened his eyes and was in a daze for a moment. Een Shenrue walked over and said with a smile, "Patriarch Lu, Sister Lan wants you to consume the horn and the ancient sword as soon as you wake up. She said that Song Long and the others will make a move. If you can consume the 2 artifacts, we will have a chance to defeat them." "Okay, how is it out there?" Lu Li nodded and asked. Een Shenrue explained, "Nothing is out of the ordinary. The divine glyphs are weakening, but at a slow pace. We can't take any action yet. We cannot use an interspatial artifact to take them over. We have to walk over. Let's keep an eye on it and let you know as soon as something happens." "Okay." Chapter 2375. The horn was not large, only the size of a hand. The ancient sword was larger and heavier. One thing in common between the 2 artifacts was that they were both engraved with complicated divine patterns that Lu Li could not understand. Both of the artifacts had a sense of vicissitude, just like the Hall of 7 Tones. Naturally, there was something special about the 2 artifacts. Lu Li put down the ancient sword and picked up the horn first. Powerful as the ancient sword was, it was not the same as the horn. The horn was a super artifact that could attack a group of people. It could defeat Song Long and the others. If he could take control of this artifact, he could defeat all the Song family warriors. Lu Li tried to pour divine energy into the horn. Still, nothing happened. Clearly, taking control of the horn with divine energy was not going to work. Dripping blood? Such a low-level method would not work. Lu Li gave it a try. Clearly, it was futile. Lu Li tried several more methods, but nothing worked. He thought about it and realized that there was only one way to crack the divine patterns. "Blood Fairy, I'm counting on you," Lu Li said. He put the horn aside and began to take control of the ancient sword. Blood Fairy snuck out from Lu Li's body and went into the horn. Lu Li picked up the ancient sword to see if he could take control of it. An hour later, Lu Li put the ancient sword aside as well and picked up the ring. This ring was no different from the average ones, inconspicuous. At first, Lu Li thought it was an interspatial ring. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that it was just an average ring, nothing like an interspatial ring or an interspatial artifact. If it was not an interspatial ring, then it must be a piece of artifact. Luli checked it. There were not many divine patterns on the ring, and there was nothing special about it. It seemed to be a regular decorative ring. Like the previous two treasures, he could not refine them. Blood Fairy had finished her examination as well. She said, "Master, these are primordial sacred glyphs. If you want to control this treasure, you must decipher the primordial sacred glyphs on it, and you must decipher them completely. That will take time, okay?" Luli understood. He nodded and asked, "How long will it take?" Blood Fairy said, which startled Luli, "It could be a few years or hundreds or thousands of years." What? Luli was taken aback. It was understandable if it was a few years. But if it was hundreds or thousands of years, then what was the use of the three treasures? The other point was that they were in desperate need of these three treasures, especially this horn. If they could refine this horn, they would be able to suppress the people from the Tsang clan immediately. Luli asked after some thoughts, "Can we crack the horn as soon as possible?" "There's no other way." Blood Fairy replied confidently, "Ancient divine glyphs are different from modern divine glyphs, and the glyphs on these horns are too complex. It will take me years to decipher them. If we're unlucky, we might need a few hundred years or even forever to solve it." "Understood. Go and take a look at the ancient sword and the ring," Luli said. Blood Fairy went back into the ancient sword. This time, she came out in a short time and went back to the interspatial ring. After the time it took for 3 incense sticks to burn, Blood Fairy said, "None of them can break it. The ancient sword is like the bugle horn. As for this ring, I don't understand it. There aren't many divine inscriptions on it, but I can't understand it." "I don't understand." Luli touched his nose. He activated the interspatial artifact. A moment later, Yin Rui came in. Luli asked Yin Rui to invite Yin Tianfan, Yin Ruolin, and Lu Haiyan. When they came in, Luli took out the 3 treasures and said, "These 3 treasures are from the ancient times. There are complicated ancient divine glyphs on them. To take control of them, you must decipher the divine glyphs. It will take me years or even hundreds of years to decipher the divine glyphs. Do you have any ideas? We will take control of them." Yin Tianfan and Yin Ruolin looked at each other, both feeling responsible. Since Luli obtained the treasures, they belonged to him. How could he let them take control of the treasures? Wasn't he afraid that they would take advantage of him? Luli took out the 3 treasures and handed them over. "All right, don't waste time. As I said, I will only take one of the 3 and give the other 2 to the Yin family. If it weren't for your help, I wouldn't have been able to take the 3 treasures." Luli was sincere. He was not lying. This time, he had borrowed Yin Tianfan's treasures. Yin Tianfan and the others had been protecting him, and Yin Rui was treating his wounds. Without the help of the Yin family, it would have been difficult for Luli to obtain the 3 treasures on his own. More importantly, he was indebted to the crippled Zen master and Yin Qingxi. He was willing to let the 2 treasures go to the Yin family. "We could take a look, but since you obtained the treasures, they are yours," Yin Tianfan said. He picked up the horn and observed it. Yin Ruolin picked up the ancient sword, and Lu Hai picked up the ring. The 3 of them studied for a while and then exchanged the rings. They returned the rings to Yin Rui for a while. In the end, they began to try to take control of the treasures. It took them more than 2 hours. "There is nothing we can do." Yin Tianfan shook his head and asked Lu Hai, "Young Master Lu, do you have any good ideas?" "No." Lu Hai shook his head and sighed. "I don't understand the ancient divine glyphs." Patriarch Lu said it would take several years or hundreds of years. "I don't think I can take control of the treasures in 10,000 years unless I can make significant progress in the study of divine glyphs." Luli was troubled that they could not find anything. He thought about it and said, "Then you can take 2 treasures and leave. I will keep one. I cannot take control of it now. I will take my time later." But Yin Tianfan didn't expect that Luli would emphasize this again. He had thought that Luli was just making an excuse. He didn't expect that Luli was sincere. Tion Fan was delighted. But soon he calmed down. He suppressed his desire and said with determination, "Let's not talk about this. Patriarch Lu, if we dare to take your treasures, our family patriarch and the 6 alien races will scold us to death." Unrivaled nodded and said, "Luli, let's not talk about this. We cannot take your treasures. If you say it again, we will turn hostile." Luli touched his nose in embarrassment. He gave the ancient sword to Unrivaled after some thoughts and said, "Fine. I will take the other 2, and you can have this one. You helped me in the second heaven back then, so I'll take it as returning the favor. If you don't want it, I will turn hostile." Unrivaled forced a smile. She put away the ancient sword and said casually, "Okay, let's leave it at that. What should we do next? Let's have a discussion. The Tsang family will not let this go. What else can we do?" Tion Fan said with strong killing intent, "We will go in first. If the Tsang family wants to fight, then let's fight to the death. Since we cannot take control of the 3 treasures, then we will fight with our own abilities. We have many powerful warriors on our side. We are not afraid of them." "No, that you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.